Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. It's History of Westeros time. It is question and answer time. And this is fun. We've never done a recording this late in the day. For us, it's 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Well, 8:37. We're starting a few minutes late, but close enough, I hope. And, you know, I'm a little loopier later as the day goes. The longer the day goes, the loopier I get, though I am still drinking coffee out of my Greyjoy mug, wearing my House Dane shirt, and Sean's got his nice Star Wars I Know shirt. You all know, you all love Sean, and he knows.
That's right.
There you go. So this has also been the most hectic, busy week of my personal career doing Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire coverage. This is our third recording this week. I'm doing another one tomorrow at Balticon, and as the show's grown, we've been able to add some help a little bit. We hired Yoke Boy from Radio Westeros to do our editing, because he's, you know, you guys have heard, if you've heard Radio Westeros' show, it's super well produced. So we wanted to bring a little of that over under our end. But he's traveling this week, so I'm doing all the editing this week myself too. So all these recordings, all these editing. Now I'm not complaining, because, you know, every minute of it is spent doing Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire stuff, and I'm grateful for that. But it is a lot to do, so it's been very busy this week. But that said, no problems. I've gathered a ton of questions from you guys. There's a bunch of them in the, in the Q&A that you guys have entered yourselves. I'm going to pull that up here now. We've got a whole lot of questions.
What questions could people even have? Haven't we answered everything already? I mean,
you might think so, but there's always more. You saw how much we talked on Monday for 3 hours. So if you're back for more, you know, that means you're as hardcore as we are. I'm guessing a lot of some of the casual folks aren't here for hours 4 and 5 of show only review this week. But this show, it just gets us all really interested and gets us all going. So, hey, let's not waste any more time. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Thanks, everybody, especially for watching live. Some of you will catch this later. Good on you either way. And it's hard to decide which question to start at. We're not going to go region by region like we do. We're just going to start. Now, again, if you are watching live, make sure you hit that Q&A button on the video player. You'll see a bunch of questions there. You can upvote the ones you like and add new ones. So that'll, you know, you can play a part in the process of which questions we actually discuss. So I'm going to pull a few from our notes, things that came from Patreon and Facebook and Twitter and email, and then we'll move on to the Q&A app questions a little later. So a couple of observations. I thought this was pretty cool, Sean. There was someone who drew a parallel. A couple people drew this parallel, actually, and the parallel is in the play. Arya sees the play, and, you know, everyone's laughing, and she's, you know, frustrated because it's portraying her family all wrong. But it's a throwback to Sansa seeing at the Purple Wedding when Joffrey was murdered. There was those dwarf performers. Yeah. And there was Robb Stark and all those other things.
They were recreating the Red Wedding.
Yeah. And it was, you know, it was a rough thing for Sansa to have to see. And of course it was, you know, this was on purpose. Someone was inflicting this on Sansa. Yeah. This was done not only on Sansa, but on other people. And of course this was Joffrey and probably Littlefinger arranged for that.
They, at a minimum, knew the effect it would have on her. Like, they might have just done this play anyway, right? They wanted to celebrate this victory or whatever. But they definitely were held no punches. You know what I mean? Like, there was no level of tact involved. Whereas this one that Arya is witnessing wasn't like, no one anticipated her or anyone connected that would see this, but it still has the impact on her.
Definitely. So that's pretty neat. It's a parallel that we didn't catch. So good job, watchers who caught that. It was a couple of you who noticed that. I wanted to clarify in the book to show, and some of you watch both. This isn't spoilery, but I mentioned that it was back in 2008, and probably even before that, some other people did, but I don't have names on that. Somebody had guessed correctly, or at least unpacked the name Hodor, meaning hold the door, and I didn't have that person's name. I do now. It's Myrddin, Myrdin. So good job, Myrddin. I guess that's a male. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but good job either way. Good prediction there. Now, watchener Daniel Christian mentioned that I said that, and you were a little with me on this, about the higher magicness of Dany's fireproofness, and how that was a little different, maybe a little bigger in ways. It didn't sit perfectly well with me. I liked it. I certainly thought it was really powerful. I liked the scene in general, but he pointed out to us that it's maybe perhaps hypocritical to complain about something like being fireproof in a world where there's dragons and White Walkers and children of the forest and all this stuff. And I see where you're coming from, but let me draw a distinction that I think is important, which is that, to me, one of the things I love about the setting is that the fantasy elements are outside the main characters. Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, much of it is about the human heart and conflict with itself. And this conflict, the best conflicts come from having difficult decisions, from being a little bit powerless. If you're just too powerful, if you can just do whatever you want, if you can just use your magic to get out of situations, there's no conflict. It's just it's just action and resolution. And so for me, the difference is I like the fantasy elements outside the main characters. I like it when Dany has to deal with the dragons because they're difficult to deal with, these fantasy creatures that have a will of their own, but they don't just bow to her will. You know, the fact that they get out of control and kill innocent people is, I mean, I don't like that they kill innocent people, but it's realistic. And the White Walkers, no one, you know, the White Walkers are villains, basically. They're not, the characters have to respond to them. Now, Bran has these magical powers, of course, but they come with the cost. Of course, the first time he kind of used them on his own, everything got all screwed up. So.
Not to mention he's limited in other ways. He might have these magical powers, but he still can't even walk. You know? So far, his powers have had, I was going to say have had no effect on anyone, but maybe they've affected Hodor. Yeah. But they only affected Hodor insofar as it saved himself. It's, you know what I mean? He's not like winning battles or stopping, you know, fleets or anything, you know. Absolutely.
And so that's the difference. There's a couple differences there, in other words. So I like it when the characters that we care about, that we're drawn into, those ones don't have the magical solutions. So it's not a complaint, it's just a preference. And to take it one step further, though, along something else that didn't sit quite right with me in that scene is, why didn't she do something like that before? She had plenty of opportunities to like awe people that were considering working for, like when Miro of the Second Sons was considering signing up to switching sides for her. Why doesn't she show off that she's like special like that? Of course, she's got the dragons, so that makes her pretty special. But if she's just like, maybe you should join my team, and holds her hand in a fire and doesn't get burned, I think that would add some weight to her argument. But I guess they just wanted to keep it down low, maybe, to make it.
Here's a couple thoughts. One, Dany may feel similar, like the character of Dany may feel similar to you. Like, I don't want to use magic. I want to do it through my own force of will, my own intellect, my own determination, my own decision making. I don't want to use these magic tricks. Yeah, that's one factor. Two, might be interpreted that way. Some people see Melisandre's power and still don't accept her. Yeah, does that makes sense.
That's true.
And finally, she may not totally realize she has the power. She may not, you know, it might be something that hasn't occurred to her in the past, or that she might not even have been 100% sure it was going to work in this scenario here. You know, it might have been a certain risk that she was taking. And in this scenario, she's kind of like all in or nothing, where other times she had other avenues. She didn't have to either resort to what she in her own mind might think of trickery, or to something that might be risky or that she's not comfortable with or confident in, you know.
Point,
so
yeah. Maybe
not to say she couldn't have ever used it at some point. It does seem like at some point she might have wanted to clarify to someone that she has some sort of power, or I don't know.
One time that it may have sort of come up was, but it wasn't necessarily intentional on her part. It was semi-intentional, perhaps. This was noted by Adam Whitehead, aka Wordhead, who has a great sci-fi fantasy blog. In particular, he's written about the history of A Song of Ice and Fire in terms of its publication history. And he's really on top of that stuff. So check him out. And he pointed out that in season 2, there was also a moment where Dany was sort of fireproof, when she basically beat the Carthene warlocks that stole her dragons. And she basically had them start breathing fire when she was just kind of trapped in the midst of it. And the flames were just all around her. They didn't like touch her, I don't think, but like that has to be like really, really hot. I was gonna say hot as hell, and that's pretty close to what dragon fire probably is, even coming from baby dragons like that. So I think that there's at least it was certainly set up by other things, but there was even more set up than we thought, or maybe not that we thought, but
I didn't think it was out of nowhere for
it wasn't out of nowhere. It definitely wasn't out of nowhere.
And but maybe it is out of nowhere for her to suddenly use it.
Yeah, you know? It was a dormant ability that she hadn't used in a long time, and it seems like maybe there were chances to use it before. But this is kind of just nitpicking. We're not really complaining.
It does lead me to another thought that I was having about Sansa and Brienne when they met with Littlefinger.
Okay.
How part of me likes the idea of Sansa kind of coming into her own and kind of taking charge of being free for once to make decisions. And there's a little part of me that was dissatisfied when she like used Brienne. She's like, Brienne will cut you down right now. Brienne goes to her sword. I kind of like, oh, that's cheating, man. You're kind of like bullying him there. To be fair, he deserves to be bullied, right? But what I mean is it's not really Sansa asserting herself over Littlefinger. It's Brienne, right? But then it occurred to me, Littlefinger just used Robin to assert himself over Royce. And Littlefinger in the past has used his guards when Brienne first came to Sansa, who like found the two of them.
Threatened her big time.
And Littlefinger was like, hey, guards, why don't you escort this fine young lady? You know what I mean? Like, so it is like a tool at Sansa's disposal. So I kind of decided that it's as fair for her to use this tool as anyone else uses this tool. Well, I feel the same thing for Dany. If Dany has his power, she should use it. Maybe she should have used it more in the past. I'm not sure, but I don't have a particular issue with it.
Yeah, I like what you're talking about there with Brienne. It was a little bit of payback. She maybe wanted her Sansa to say, yeah, okay, Brienne, go ahead, kill him. Okay, so we'll stay with Dany for a minute here. Abe Friedberg suggests that maybe we're a little too hard on Dany's ruling, as her abilities maybe taking more into account her situation and her youth. Now, I'm not sure that we have been that hard on her, because I do agree with that. Maybe I haven't expressed myself as well as I thought I have, but I definitely think Dany deserves a lot of passes for mistakes she's made because of her youth. And I mean, it's normal. She's a teenager. Of course, the standard for teenagers is different in Westeros and Essos in her case than it is for our world. But still, young people are supposed to be able to make mistakes. They're supposed to, I mean, it's just normal. And so I have no trouble with her making mistakes. When I say that Varys and Tyrion are a big help to her, it's because they have experience. That's exactly what she needs. You know, if she were older and had more experience and was making these mistakes, then it would be correct, I think, or more apt to make more criticisms of her. But she's 16 in the show effectively? I don't even know how old she is these days. But that's really accomplished for 16. Even take away the dragons, which is, kind of a magical, well, not kind of. So do you have any thoughts on that? Like Dany's just judging her as a ruler in general?
I think that I'm more. I see all that. Like on one hand, I feel like there have been times where she was making a mistake, and sometimes maybe subtle, or maybe we know better because we saw this other thing. Or maybe sometimes she's even going against counsel. There have been a couple times when I felt like she was almost obviously doing this. Like, what? Oh, especially like watching it a second time. But hindsight's 20/20, and it's a lot easier for us to be watching as viewers with all this perspective to judge a decision someone's making in the heat of the moment,
Yes.
So, and she is younger. Now, all that said, the thing is that we might find all these reasons why it's okay for her to make these mistakes, or say that she's not terrible, she's not a 4, she's a 7. But when she presents herself as the savior of the world, breaker of chains, well, you better live up to that. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And or incorporate a little humility into your persona.
I think there's another distinction to be made here too, and it's the difference between pointing out someone's mistakes and condemning them because of them. Like, we will point out Dany's mistakes, we'll point out everyone's mistakes, we'll point out Bran's mistakes, we'll point out Cersei's mistakes, we'll point out Jaime's mistakes. But it's different than condemning them. If we say, well, because of this mistake, I think she's bad, that's different, or she's terrible because of that. And there's a lot of that in the fan. A lot of people just, nothing you say will convince them Dany isn't horrible. But I'm nowhere near that attitude, and neither is Sean. So I think, it's important to draw those distinctions and to be fair and come at these things sort of approach them as, from a middle standpoint and put these things in perspective. Anyway, good thoughts there, Abe. Good question. Glad we got to discuss that. Now, here's let's go to the far other end of the ice and fire spectrum. That was Dany talking about Dany. We're talking about fire. Let's talk about ice for a second. White Walkers. We were guessing and thinking in the moment about how many there were, and well, it suggested that maybe there was just those 3 left because there were 4 at the cave and 1 was killed by Mira. But if you think back to season 4, again, a few people pointed this out after the episode, and of course when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, of course, I really should have caught this. There's the ceremony, the ritual, whatever you want to call it, where the White Walkers take Craster's baby and they turn it into a walker like them. There's 13 of them there. And we've only seen 2 die since then, because the one that Sam killed was before that. So there's at least 11 left, and if they made the baby into one, then that would be 12, maybe. I don't know, like if it's got a gestation period, you know, it's just a
yeah. Also, does he turn into one of them or one of the horde? You know,
I don't think it turns into a horde. The horde is just, no, they don't.
Like the guy the watchman who came back alive and attacked.
Yeah, they had the blue eyes there, and they did. No, I'm wrong. They do have blue eyes. It's just not well seen sometimes. Like in the scene when Bran was walking through the entire undead army, none of them.
Yeah, they didn't seem to stand out as having blue eyes at least.
But so. There's plenty of times where they have been shown out. I think it's whether or not they're active. You know, I think when they're just sitting there dormant, because when they all came alive, when Night King realized Bran was there, well, their eyes still didn't turn blue, but they were. It showed that they weren't even. They were dormant. They were just standing there like they were in storage, basically, because they're not alive. And in fact, that is a good segue to another question that, again, many people have asked this one. Will Bran be able to warg into whites? Your thoughts on that? I'm thinking no, because they're not alive.
Yeah, I think no, but I feel like any answer we come up with is just kind of just guessing or thinking about what we want. I don't think there's any real evidence to point whether he's already done. Here's the thing. If there was some evidence somewhere that like indicated that no, he can't, like if Tyrion had read some line or Sam read some line from, it says here that wargs can't go into White Walkers. We've also been told he can't go into people, but he went into Hodor. Yeah. And maybe there's some reason or excuse or justification, but the fact is that there's anything that we got isn't scientific in the first place, right? And precedents have been set to break what we've been told in the past. Now, part of me feels like he shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like if I was a writer, if I could control or choose what was going to happen, he wouldn't be able to. I think that would be too powerful or too easy. You know,
it doesn't fit for me because of the whole they're not, because it seems to me that he can only control living creatures and they're not alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, that was really well said. We can't. We're basically guessing here. Another piece of evidence might relate to the fact that, or not another piece of evidence, but there's more to this that I want to explore. And we saw that ceremony of the children making the Night King from a human, from a first man. Now, some humans have the skin-changing green seer abilities. So there's some speculation that they can't just transform any human, but they have to transform humans that already have some of this magical ability in the first place. And it's just it kind of fits in a way that only a magical thing can. In other words, you take a human being capable of controlling animals or slipping into their skin, and then you modify them into this undead being, and that power is subverted in a similar way. You take a living person, make them into a living dead person, and then now instead of controlling live animals, they can control dead creatures.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a connection in a, I mean, I'm trying to make sense of magic, so you can, don't hold me to that, but I think it's kind of a cool thought, and the way those things parallel is kind of neat. It might be what George had in mind, something along those lines. It might be close. We might be, maybe I didn't hit the bullseye there, but maybe in the neighborhood, something like that.
Maybe of all the sons they take from Craster, only 1 in 20 worked,
Or just some of them are stronger than others, maybe some of them are more powerful. Some of them are like crappy walkers, and some of them
are more leader characters to control or make tactical decisions. Maybe some are more individual swordsmen or whatever, just like humans might be.
Right, and we pointed out, I think we pointed this out in the book to show episode, not in the show only review, is that earlier versions of the walkers that we saw on TV were not wearing armor. I mean, we did, I think at the ceremony they were, but the one Sam killed, no armor. He was naked, upper body. It's on the screensaver that we have on this computer that we're doing on. So we noticed that really clearly. We had a really easy check, which
might mean that they weren't prepared or preparing for battle yet at that moment, but now they are.
Now they're like one of them got stabbed by a dragon glass dagger. Well, armor is good against obsidian. That stuff's brittle. So. Yeah, so that's interesting. It might have been like a little subtle clue that they've adapted slightly, or that they're preparing to ramp things up. But you wonder, where are those other walkers weren't in that vision? Where were they? Were they on some crappy mission? Like, you're not a very good White Walker. We're going to send you to menace.
You go change the diapers of the baby walkers.
And there's like the wildlings have mostly left the north of the wall. So who is there to menace? What are they doing? Yeah. I guess there's a few wildlings left up there still. So maybe they're getting really menaced by the White Walkers up there now. Like, we really should have left. All the White Walkers are focusing on us. We're the only ones here. So anyway, there's really no way to know. I'm not even, there's no guarantee that the show is even decided on some set number. They may just have shown 13 because 13 is, like this cool mystical number.
Yeah.
But there's also a suggestion that it relates to this Last Hero story. The Last Hero is one of the fables that Nan tells Bran about way back when the Last Hero had 13 companions or something like that is the thing. There's also the story that Night King was the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, things like that. But clearly not. That's a book thing, and that's just a story. So we were shown in the show that that's clearly not the case because they made Night King. That didn't look like they were converting a Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I mean, maybe they were. The guy didn't have a beard, which is kind of odd for ancient first men.
I think it might be, this is very minor, but I think it's noteworthy that it's not 7. 7 is not a number, which is also kind of like a number that often is just chosen to represent luck or whatever,
Yeah.
But in Game of Thrones, in the world of Westeros, it's part of the religion.
Yeah.
And that would have been noteworthy if it was 7 of them every time we saw 7 of them. But it's definitely not, so.
Yeah. And the other thing that's kind of interesting about this is that I want to think about that isn't something that we can explore deeply, but is a really kind of cool thing to just throw out there. The others take children, make them into White Walkers. Night's Watch doesn't allow its members to have children. Could that be related from in the ancient past? That could be like it develops as part. Now, it wouldn't be strange if it wouldn't connect. I mean, the Kingsguard aren't have kids, and there's a very obvious reason for that. They're supposed to focus on their duty. Family, like Master Aemon says, love is the death of duty. You can't. It's hard to do both. It's hard to have a family and to dedicate your life to this martial order. So
just as
it does not have to relate, but it's a pretty cool thought that it might.
And it would make sense also that the Night's Watch would be restricted, especially because at least a lot of them are there instead of being killed. So you're not going to like be spared and get to get married and have kids and go on with your life. The whole point is you're starting a new life, and it is a commitment to this. This guard,
Okay, so let's move on. A quick note from Typhu Lannister points out that I mentioned that the Ramsay, when they introduced not introduced, but basically brought Ramsay to the forefront with his hunting scene where he hunts the girl, that I said that was just after or the next episode after the Purple Wedding, but apparently he corrected me and pointed out that it was just before. Same difference. They introduced around the same time, but good to correct myself there. Let's see. Next question. From Sin E, who wonders about Kinvara and Melisandre's past. I like this question a lot, since they're both so old. Well, we don't know that Kinvara is so old. We assume that there's a good chance that she's old because she's a high-ranking priestess, and Melisandre's really old, and she's not a high-ranking priestess as far as we can tell. Melisandre, that is. So it makes sense that if Kinvara is a high-ranking red priestess and this age, unless Melisandre is truly unique with her ancientness, then Kinvara could be even more ancient. And that is, again, this is all magical speculation. It's hard to go anywhere with this other than to talk about it and have fun with it. It's hard to conclude anything.
It does make you wonder how many other of these priests and priestesses, I guess, because Thoros wasn't magically extra old or anything.
No.
So there may be, one, I wonder how many of these priests and priestesses there are in general, and two, how many of them are really old. Like on one hand, Melisandre's old, so maybe she's old too. But on the other hand, Thoros wasn't old, so she may not be old, But she definitely did seem to have more of Melisandre's presence than Thoros. Thoros is like, hey man, I'm just getting drunk. This is cool shit, right? But she's like, the Lord of Light will deliver the blah, blah. She has that same sort of persona and mentality about it all. So maybe it's more likely that she is older, or at least of the same school of thought or trainer from the past. Or it doesn't seem unlikely at all that they would know each other or be aware of each other.
Exactly. That was where I was going to go next, to point out, could they at least be aware of each other, or have met, or have actually have some kind of real history where they, maybe they are friends or enemies, I mean, they probably couldn't be like bitter enemies, both being red priests, but you never know. They could be.
The show's hardly talked about at all. I don't know if it would be spoilery to ask about the books, but do they have a Citadel equivalent? Do you know what I mean? Do they?
There's great red temples all over the free cities. The biggest one is in Volantis, and there's an equivalent character in the book that's not Kinvara, but is basically the parallel role, and it's the circumstances are at least somewhat similar. I don't want to spoil anything, but there's some similar circumstances. But there's basically a red temple There is no one central red temple, but the one in Volantis is possibly the largest.
And there are many.
Many. There's even a small red. There's little small red temple sept. It's not a sept. Red temple even in like Old Town. Just a small one for mostly for sailors and for foreigners. It isn't popular amongst Westerosi, at least not yet. Maybe that'll change. Yeah, Danny bringing over a bunch of red priestesses. Maybe they'll start spreading the word.
Yeah, I was so intrigued by the moment when Kinvara. I guess it's kind of, how does she know that? But I don't care how she knows. I want to know what it was that Varys heard. I want to know what was that thing that he heard.
I wish he had said yes to
that
question.
I feel like they have to tell us. There's no way they like put that in there and don't bring it up again later on. But
I believe someone even asked us that question. It might be somewhere in my notes. It might be on the Q&A list there, but someone wanted to know who we thought that voice was. I have no idea, really. I mean, it could be, I don't know that gods are it Westeros and Essos at all. It's not clear. It could be just there's magical forces that people can tap into, and they just call that, God derived. But there's no proof. We've never seen any proof that the gods are real. Unless you want to consider like Night King a god, which is there's some argument for that.
But like, say it was the Night King. How would Varys know that it was the Night King?
Yeah, no,
right?
there would be no.
So it could be that it was like some character that she knows who it is. There was just a voice to Varys, and maybe we'll find out that was the Red Lord. What's his name? What's the name of the god? R'hllor. That was R'hllor speaking to you. But maybe it was someone that Varys did know or come to know. Maybe it was Ares or something. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. Speaking of Ares, I meant to say this when we talked about Thoros, but I got sidetracked. If you recall, Thoros was brought to Westeros because they heard that Ares was into fire. And they're like, oh, nice opportunity. Maybe we can win over. But Thoros had no luck with Ares, but it turned out he got along great with Robert because they both loved drinking so much. So it didn't quite. He made friends with the king, but it wasn't the king that.
The wrong king.
Yeah. I think that's hilarious. Okay, next question from Shift Dougler. Nice name, or Shift Dougler. Could the walkers cure grayscale? That's another one that's just really, we couldn't give a definitive answer.
No, they can. I know they can.
Jorah's already asked them. It's in the trailer. Didn't you see that trailer? It was like Jorah talking to the walkers. He goes into the White Walker store, and they're like, "Can we help you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, rolls up his sleeve, and they're like, "Billy, come take a look.
Bring the pixie dust."
Yeah. So no, honestly though, it's interesting because they, if they can control dead things, and it's like his arm is slowly dying. You wonder if it's like they can't cure it, but maybe they can
freeze it
or control him.
Now, I didn't even think of this. Can Jorah amputate his arm to stop it? Like, as gruesome as that might be, I would chop my arm off rather than die.
Well, if it was, he should have done that a long time ago. Yeah, he should have just cut his fingers off
before it gets up to the elbow or whatever.
Yeah, I will say this is a minor book spoiler. That is a suggested cure in the books, but it doesn't either. They're not using that in the show, or Jorah just didn't want to do that.
It kind of loses who he is.
The reason, it's his left hand, but it's still, the other thing would be is if he had cut his fingers off back then he would have given it away. He'd have to explain his missing fingers. They'd be like, "What, dude? What happened to your fingers?" "Oh, nothing."
Also, I don't think it's on his fingers. I feel like the first and every time they've shown it, it's been on his forearm, not his fingers.
Yeah, you're right. It maybe didn't go this way. It only went this way. That's a good point.
I don't know if it's going down to his fingers yet. I haven't noticed it on his hand.
I'll probably take a closer look at
his hand.
That's a good point. Should maybe review that last scene where he gives Danny a really good look at it. Okay, let's see here. Another watchener points out something I couldn't think of. Jamie Zara Hall points out that it was Sigur Rós that was the band at the Purple Wedding, and I really can't believe I couldn't think of that because Sigur Rós is pretty famous, and I'm not a regular listener of theirs, but I'm familiar with their music. And at the time, I was like, why can't I think of it? So thanks for pointing that out. That's who it was. And let's go here as well. Katie Alt points out to us that maybe we jumped past the simpler explanation with Brienne being a little, having mistrust towards male affection and tension because of what happened to her in the past, but maybe she's just not interested in Torment.
No, she is.
You talked to her too, huh?
Yeah.
She confided.
I got the inside scoop on that.
Man, you got a lot of inside scoops today. I'm just behind you here. So that is a good point. We should have at least mentioned the simpler case, which is, that's just more honest. The possibility, maybe just Brienne, she's just not attracted to him. I just can't understand that because I'm attracted to him. That
also,
beard.
by the way, and I don't know how much to get into this, the nature of relationships and why people should or shouldn't be attracted to each other, but literally, I don't think they've spoken a word to each other. Like, she doesn't have anything to judge him on other than his appearance.
Staring at
right?
her, like his eager face, like.
So, like, he might be an evil, murderous, backstabbing but he might be a noble, trustworthy but she doesn't really know. I mean, maybe on some level she might have a prejudice towards wildlings,
like
an understandable one, right? So, and he's kind of murderous.
He is, yeah. But, it's true. It's true. He's a good dude, but he's murderous. He's capable.
I wonder who's killed more people, Tormund or Brienne?
I believe Tormund's a lot older than she is, so probably Tormund. But, because Brienne didn't, when we first see her, which is that fight, and she's in the tournament,
Renly, right?
She hadn't killed anyone before that.
Yeah.
As far as I don't think she had killed anyone before that. And then after that, she's been in fights, but she hasn't exactly slaughtered tons of people. But Tormund has killed lots of Night's Watch. Although he's also killed people that were already dead. Lots of his kills
he's
were
probably
whites.
killed other wildlings.
So I'm guessing Tormund is far more notches in his belt in that regard.
I wonder who's killed more people, Brienne or Arya?
Oh, man. Okay, quick pause for ad break considerations, and we'll be right back with more questions. Lots more to cover. All right. Let's see here. Let's go to Stanklepoot. What a name. Nice name there. Now, Stanklepoot suggests we take the Lady Crane assassination further, which is that it's interesting to consider that Arya is being told to assassinate fake Cersei when we know that real Cersei is on her list. But we didn't really mention the fact that it's fake Sansa taking fake Cersei's place in this scenario. Just like we saw in earlier seasons how Sansa was stepping up when Cersei was kind of melting in the Blackwater. And it was kind of like a harbinger of Sansa coming along to be better than Cersei, to rule more capably and to do these things. It's kind of neat to see that little parallel and just to consider the fact that it's a Sansa replacing a Cersei in both ways. And, if Sansa, especially if you think of Sansa as Lannister, which he's not, but if she were still married to Tyrion, it would work even better. So, okay, I like that. That's pretty cool. What else do we have here? Oh, this is great. Okay, so also staying with the play, Lucas Perzek points out that the Sansa actress, this is a great meta comment here, the Sansa actress complains that she only had 2 lines, and then the other man responds, "There are no small parts."
Yeah.
This describes Hodor.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. Oh, and sad. A beautiful death thing again. So, yeah, look, because he didn't even have 2 lines. He had 1 line, just said many, 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 many times, many different emotional affectations to it. But he did not have a small part. He's certainly not a small
How many
guy.
lines did young Hodor have?
He had more than the old Hodor did because he actually got to say some things.
He definitely spoke
about the shield and,
he made some observation on their sparring.
He was talking to Lyanna for a second there, So that's nice. I like that. Okay, here's a clever question that I've seen from several people actually, and when several people mention it and I don't think of it, I feel like I missed something. But it can't be perfect. Did Euron burn Dany's fleet?
Yeah, that is a good question. What's the timing of that? Is it theoretically
forget the
possible?
timing. Yeah,
because I guess they could just toy around with that anyway.
Forget the timing, because with Littlefinger moving around the way he has, the standard is that they can play fast and loose with timing. So I don't think we can even really use that.
It would make a lot of sense, though. It would make a lot of sense if he put it all together, had this master plan. It takes away even a little bit of the coincidence of him showing up at that moment, and when he showed at that moment because he knew that they would need the fleet, and there were the real coincidence is Theon showing up.
Yes, that's a coincidence. Euron was a plan. The other thing I like about this theory, at first I was like, it's too out there, but I quickly changed my mind because. For one thing, originally it was the time thing that threw me off at first, but then I was like, no, that doesn't matter. The timing doesn't matter.
And B, it does. I think it at least kind of adds up.
It does.
Right?
Yeah, the thing that stuck me was, why would the slave masters want to burn the ships? They want Dany to leave.
Yeah.
You don't tell someone, get in your car and leave, and then go out and puncture their tires.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So, it arguing that it was a third party really fits because it's counter to the motivation of the masters. It could have been someone else that did it, like someone like you could imagine the freedmen do it to make sure she doesn't leave. You know, they're like, well, if she leaves, the masters can take over again. Yeah. We want to make sure she stays. So there's other people besides Euron, but the argument that it was the slavers, I think, are kind of far down the list for candidates for having done that. And Euron needs to be on that list. So
yeah,
good on you. Anyone who asked that question, that one's for you. Good job. Now, I'm going to take a few. We'll do a few more questions from people that we've gotten. Multiple people have brought this up. And meanwhile, more people are upvoting and adding questions to the Q&A app, which is good. While we answer these questions, other ones can get time to get upvoted or not. And in the meantime, hey, Sean, what's that red beverage you're drinking there? You were drinking pureed Children of the Forest before. Now it looks like you're drinking pureed Dragon.
This is the blood of the Children of the Forest.
Oh, they don't have green blood, huh?
No.
All right, well, that's good to know.
Not Vulcan.
Okay, so
here's
a related question about the walkers and the children. Well, mostly just about the walkers. Will the mark on Bran allow the walkers to break through the wall?
Maybe. I don't know. It's a possibility, but I don't think so. This is what I think, is that it is what they said it is. Now they can get us here. And that's it. Nothing more.
Yeah.
They know that Bran is at that tree and they can enter the tree. And for the moment, that's just what I'm accepting. It's what they told us, and nothing more, nothing less.
I see two ways to this. I think it's absolutely possible with anything magic like this. We just can't be confident and say, "Oh, definitely not," or "Definitely yes." There's obviously we can't know. But okay, so let's think about it strategically. If the walkers want this to happen, I don't know that they'd be pursuing him they're trying to kill him. Seems like they just want him dead. And if he could be a decoy to get them through the wall, then they would let him through the wall, but maybe not, because then they're like, well, if he gets to the other side, maybe they'll never catch him. So it depends on which is more important to them, if it's even an option.
Yeah.
Maybe they think they could do both. They let him through the wall, and then they think, well, now the wall's not a barrier, so we can go get him and kill him. But
his existence even might be a new realization to them. They might know or be aware or be after the Raven character, but not even know who Bran is. But then all of a sudden, when the Night King's like, "Who's this dude? What's going on? What's up with you? Oh, you're in that tree, huh? There's a blood raven. Kill him. Maybe we should get that kid." They might not necessarily know what they're supposed to be doing at this moment either. Again, I kind of wonder in general about what their motivations are. The closest I've come up with, especially with what we saw this last episode, is kill all humans. You know what I mean? And I don't even know how purely evil they are any more than sharks are evil. You know what I mean?
Or predators.
Or how determined or ambitious they are. Do they actively want to cross the wall and kill all humans? And even if they do want that, do they want to do it as fast as possible, no matter what? Well, eventually. They've been around thousands of years, and they seem to have come out of dormancy in the past 20 years. Perspective-wise, kind of like ending slavery tonight or ending it in 7 years. Like, slavery has been going on for the history of man. Well, this is kind of shitty to say to the people who are in slavery at the moment, but what's 7 more years? How many people are going to die trying to make it in tonight versus the lives we could save and still end it if we stretch out over a few years?
And of course, with that analogy, you want to make sure it sticks too.
Right. And so what's the White Walkers' perspective? Are they willing to charge across the wall and have everyone be slaughtered because they didn't realize how much obsidian there was going to be? Or maybe we can plot this out. Let's wait 5 or 10 years. We've been waiting 5,000 years. Let's make sure we're going to do it right.
You'd think they have some patience.
Yeah. And it seems like they do, by the way. Their minions seem to just mindlessly horde forward, but they seem to be in the background, observing. They never seem to be in a particular rush. They never seem to be particularly concerned. I feel like they have some combination of patience or perspective or more of a long-term plan.
Yeah, it was in the Hardhome scene. They stayed out of it until there was a reason to come down, which seems they kind of either figured out that there was obsidian, or they saw Jon with his Valyrian steel blade and were like, okay, that one, get that guy. And it was something that stood out to them.
And even when it was like, get that guy, it wasn't like, oh, and they all charged forward. One guy went, slowly, methodically, lost. The others witnessed that. and held their ground. They didn't like, oh, you go now, 3, let's all take them. They were like, interesting. They just took note and held their ground where they were.
Patient, old, wise beings.
So
evil, wise beings.
They seem calculating enough for me to not want to say they're just tigers and sharks and there's no evilness to them.
Yeah.
But they also seem to be, I don't know what the word is, aloof or calculating. I can't quite think of the right word here, but I'm just trying to compare them. If I could choose between a White Walker being king or Joffrey being king,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, if I knew for sure the White Walker's goal was to kill all humans, then I guess Joffrey's better. But I don't know for sure if that's his goal. And also, even if that was his goal, I might grow up, get married, have kids, and die before the White Walker gets to me. But when Joffrey gets to me, he's gonna like poke my legs and drown me to death slowly. Ramsay would torture me meanly. He would. So far, the White Walkers are almost
this clinical. They just
considerate when they can. It's like dead.
You're dead.
You know what I mean?
You're
they don't
dead.
like slowly toy with you to your death and go after your family members. You know
there's
what I mean?
no torture. There's not really. They're not about making people suffer, as far as we've seen.
Right.
They're just about
they're not that much
accomplishing
different
this agenda, which
than
is
a tiger in the woods capturing a chipmunk or whatever.
They defend their territory. They eat, but they don't kill things they don't need to.
And obviously, I'm not saying that they're good guys. And I think they are. It's fair to call them bad guys, antagonists, villains, but I'm not sure if they're evil.
Well, you're delving into another something that's a good segue to another question here. That's something that deals with the nature of them, and we talked about earlier in the episode about how maybe there's some sort of they need to have Night's King. They had to use a first man who actually had some sort of skin changing, like some sort of green seer abilities already to make him into a walker. It wasn't just any old man they could do that to, or any young man, but. So it begs the question, was it somebody important, like not just a random, like a Stark? That would be like a real, like, whoa, Night's King was a Stark. That's the kind of thing you could see that being written and being like, oh, that's a great surprise to drop on people, of course. So that's the question. Many people ask this question, is Night King a Stark? No way to know. Again, there's no way to answer that question for sure. But I do think, from a storytelling perspective, from what a kind of a bomb to drop that would be. And from a, the magic of the Starks and them having this connection to, their sigil is their motto is winter is coming, right? And every other motto is like, we're great, or this is about us, but this is like a warning. All the other houses, it's like, ours is the fury, hear me roar, as high as honor, they're all just describing
growing
themselves.
Stronger.
Yeah, this is like a warning. It's like a duty, like winter is coming. That's what you got to remember. And that's its whole. So there's a lot of, and the Starks don't burn their dead either, which is interesting. They bury them in the crypts with these swords. It's really interesting. There's definitely some room for that, or for some sort of big reveal as to their true origin. We think we've learned now. We've seen it's a first man converted, but there could be more to it. It could go deeper than that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
You were just making me wonder what Littlefinger's house words are. I was also realizing I can't think of his character's name other than Littlefinger.
Baelish.
Peter Baelish. Thank you.
Well, his family is really new. I don't think they have words.
But they have the Sparrow as their sigil.
Well, it's Mockingbird, but no, it's not. That's his personal sigil.
Oh, that's just
their original sigil is his grandfather was a grandfather. I think it's his grandfather. It might be his great grandfather, but it's either grandfather or great grandfather was a sellsword from Bravos that was hired by an Aaron. I think it might have, I can't remember which Aaron, but that's how they came to it. It might not even been an Aaron. He was hired by a Vale Lord to come fight for some reason and ended up staying there and did well and was granted lands. And he took the head of the Titan as a sigil.
Okay.
Now this is book canon. I don't know if this applies to the show or not, because some of these things they just copy because it doesn't matter. It's not like it doesn't impact the story who Littlefinger's grandfather was. So I assume it's the same in the show. It might not be, but I'm pretty sure it is. Maybe they just play it off as Mockingbird is his sigil, but permanently. But either way, that's a good origin story. He hasn't been around very long. His family is an old blood, and that's part of his character, is trying to be worthy of the noble blood. Okay, here's a question from David Stead. What is the point of the High Sparrow? This is me paraphrasing the question a bit, adapting it for the way I want to talk about it. But what is the point of the High Sparrow if he doesn't cause changes to the characters and or the situation in King's Landing? none of these players actually seem capable of dealing with the real threat in the north anyway. So are they kind of, is this a way to sort of push them aside or to set up their downfall even more, to pave the way for Daenerys, who seems more capable and perhaps more willing? And in general, paving the way for Daenerys seems like what's happened in Dorne. And possibly in other places. Iron Islands are trying to welcome her with open arms, but there's obviously two different factions working on that. But other than that, yeah, like, can you imagine Cersei, like, or Jaime and the Tyrells getting together and sending their army to the north to fight the White Walkers? Like, I mean, it could happen, but it doesn't.
Not anytime soon,
right? They're all too worried about each other. Soon. Like, we send our army north, that exposes us. Like, the Tyrells will attack us if we, or someone will attack us if we send our army north. They're just, Cersei's just paranoid.
Like, I think if the White Walkers actually come across the wall, conquer Winterfell or maybe the Vale, right? And that at some point they're like, oh, okay,
that might get their attention.
All right, yeah. Whatever they were worried about the Tyrells doing, then the Tyrells might also be like, oh, hey, let's just get together and fight this wall. Something might wake them up, but that hasn't happened yet. Yeah, they've even been warned of it and just straight ignored it. So, well,
they not only did they ignore it, they thought it was pragmatic to ignore it because they're like, well.
Let those Northerners fight it. They'll take the brunt of it. Then we'll come clean up. At the time,
it was Stannis too. Yeah, so it's like, let Stannis deal with that. Let the wall deal with that. It's not our problem. And if it hurts our enemies, it's good for us.
Yeah,
right?
They were at war with the North, and the North will be hit by it first.
Yeah, they're like, why is the North getting invaded bad for us in the South when they're trying to break free into their independent kingdom? Like, yeah, that seems like a plus. Of course, they don't really know what they're dealing with. But speaking of Simon Hatch. Actually, did you have any more on that? Do you think that there's any indication that maybe things will turn? They can maybe set things aside.
It is a good point. Like, why have the Sparrow come along if it's not going to change anything?
I mean, we have had plot lines that didn't necessarily seem to advance the greater plot. They were just distractions. Like Dany getting her dragon stolen in season 2. That just didn't.
Yeah.
That's pretty forgettable. It was like an adventure, but it does not tie into the main arc. And that's not a slam on Dany. That's just that's just a random thing I picked out. That didn't seem to go anywhere.
Generally, it does seem. I think many other people kind of feel that Dany and Jon sort of have plot armor. That they are ice and fire. In the long term, they're going to come to a head. And in the meantime, we watch all this drama in King's Landing, or wherever else it's playing out. And it does seem like though that so on a certain level, you need to kind of like delay Dany coming into power until the moment is ready in Westeros, and delay Jon or delay the invasion of the White Walkers. These things need to be put off until you have this moment of convergence. But if you're also delaying what's going on in King's Landing, if everything's being delayed, what's it being delayed for? So I do feel like there should be some big impact that comes from it, which might be a thing I've kind of speculated on already, which would also be an excuse to show off Casterly Rock. Would be for the Lannisters to have to flee, for King's Landing to just fall into riots, and they're just in a panic. The Tyrells and Lannisters just have to get out of there. Maybe some even get killed on the way out, and then they retreat to Casterly Rock, and then we get to see that slice of this world, like we've seen Winterfell, and we've seen Dorne, and we've seen the Water Gardens. We're about to see the Citadel and even Sam's home. There's all these different locations and productions and stuff in this world that we're getting to see. And Casterly Rock is maybe one of the top 3 or 5, at least, most important locations in this world. And it's the one we haven't seen anything from. So I kind of expect / hope that King's Landing will just fall, because I can't really predict much else. What else is going to happen other than nothing, which like this person's kind of saying, why would they do all this for nothing? So King's Landing just falls into disarray. And then we get to see Casterly Rock, and it also leaves it to Dany to come resecure King's Landing.
It does fit, right? Yeah. Okay, so next question. That's a great question by David Stead there. Simon Hatch wants to know, he's fast forwarding to the ending of the entire story here and asking maybe if the free folk will kind of turn it around and be restocking the wall as members of the Night's Watch. Maybe not as taking, maybe they won't take the oaths, because maybe things will change. Maybe there'll be some new situations, new rules will be written. And maybe they won't need to. Maybe there won't be a wall, for one thing.
Yeah.
I kind of don't think the entire wall comes down, but boy, would that be an epic thing to do.
I hope not. People have brought that up a few times in the past. And
so much for it to come down completely. Maybe a giant hole in it or something.
Right. Reaching the wall is one thing.
Yeah.
Right. Even just the gate. One giant was able to get just barely didn't make it to that gate.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe if the wall was better stocked, he wouldn't have even come close. But what if it was 4 giants? Can the White Walkers bring giants? We haven't seen it yet, but can there be a giant other? You know,
I would think
be something to.
I would think so.
That's like, I just feel like one giant is just a tide turner. It's just like that. He's got to be worth like
50, 100 men,
maybe even more.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Especially if they're willing to be borderline suicidal. Like if they are willing to just charge into the front line, because even if they charge in and kill 50 men and die, that distraction on the front line and those 50 men dying for the rest of the army to move in, it's worth more than just those 50 men. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of that gate, Gren held the gate.
Yeah.
So long ago.
That's what Gren means, held the gate.
That's pretty cool. Hodor wasn't the first one. Oh, well, was he the first one? Because it was before. Or was it after? Was it? I'm confusing myself. Yeah, it was both. It was both before and after Gren.
I think that for the wall to come down, again, I can accept that there's like magic involved. And I might have mentioned some of this before, but I think if the White Walkers have that power to just bring that wall down, if they're that powerful.
That's pretty powerful.
They don't even need this stupid army. They don't need a bunch of zombies. You know what I mean? I think that level of power is greater than thousands and thousands of zombies. You know what I mean? Especially when you consider that maybe it's just magical and they bring it down and just disintegrates into nothing, right? But if it's made out of ice, I think it's made out of ice, right? Magic might be holding it together or brought it forth in the first place, but it's real ice. Right?
Very thick.
That amount, that volume would be like a natural disaster. Maybe everyone in Westeros would die. They wouldn't need a single soul. Just that amount of water and the mudslides created and the flooding just sweeping across Westeros might just destroy everyone without a sword.
I doubt it would get all the way
that
far south, but it could be. Yeah, I mean, I agree. The level of destruction would be massive.
Yeah,
it might be like what happened at Moat Cailin, where there's a castle built there, and then at some point there's massive flooding and turned into a big swamp, and it's kind of uninhabitable, and the castle was not entirely destroyed, but messed up pretty badly. Something like that. Yeah, like it would.
I mean, it's massive. It's an ocean of water locked up in that wall. It's kind of unfathomably
miles
large. Across, right?
Yeah, it's like 300 miles long.
300 miles long.
700 feet tall.
700 feet tall, like, I don't know, 50 feet thick or something.
I don't know
That's a massive amount of water.
It's insane,
That's huge. I believe that would be.
I mean, it wouldn't have to be water, though. It could just be chunks of ice, I guess. But
yeah, maybe just chunks of ice just like collapse all in place, and it doesn't.
But why would they need to bring the whole thing down anyway? Like you say, all
that's
they
what
need
I'm
is
saying. They just need to go through a section, the gate that's already there.
I mean, we saw the king, like break the ice at the beginning of that scene. He put his hand down, but that was just like that was kind of random. He didn't do anything else with that, but it did kind of cause a little earthquake. But it was pretty small. If that's the extent of what he can do, he only did it the one time. Yeah. I'm guessing you're right. Like you said, it would be a little much for him to just be able to like knock the wall down. It's like, well, this didn't work. This was built to keep him out, and he just
why did they build that whole wall if they could just bring it all down? Like many things about it made me just believe that that's not happening.
We should why do we build a wall of ice to keep out ice being? We should have built a wall of fire. Damn, was stupid.
700 feet tall.
It's like I don't know how you keep a 700-foot wall of fire though.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do the ice.
I'm pretty sure similarly, it would be a natural catastrophe that would destroy the world. All the smoke in the air would block out sunlight for the plants to grow. It would be the end of civilization.
Okay, let's look at some questions on the Q&A app here. We have a question from Galby the Pale Blade here. We have now, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the question up there in the corner now. That is why we prefer you guys to use the Q&A button, the Q&A feature on the Google Plus event page where this event was announced, because it allows for the upvoting and allows for us to show it on screen like this. Isn't that nice? If you're listening on iTunes, well, this is transparent to you, but hey, we prefer it that way. Either way, the question is, are we now to believe there are no more children of the forest? I kind of think so.
I don't think so.
I mean, let me rephrase that. I kind of think that they're not going to be much or at all of a role in the show anymore.
Fair. I'm not sure about that. Even I sort of expect them to like come to Bran's aid. I feel like unless that doorway was an entrance to some other magical place where the White Walkers can't get, they are still, I think, in imminent danger that a girl dragging a boy's body is not going to be able to fend off, right? And we even kind of speculated that maybe Benjamin Stark will show up. I don't think he can do it either. One guy is going to fight off this horde of monsters. Maybe he can scoop Bran off and run him away. Is he ready for this? Does he have an extra horse with him, with a saddle built for Bran to ride in? And I don't see. So I almost feel like there's got to be some children of the forest coming to the rescue here.
Okay.
And
yeah, we shall
and
see.
Even if their population is extremely diminished, they haven't ever really said. And I assume that they're just this last few, but perspective-wise, even if the last few was only 20, if there was only 1,000, that's still a really small population. I think I wish I knew a little bit better, but in our world of biology, of scientists like declaring a species endangered or whatever, I bet an endangered species probably has thousands and thousands and thousands in their population, right? So there may even be 1,000 children of the forest, but they may be spread out. Some of them might be old. They might not be organized. There might only be 20. And if there's only 20, then there's still like 13 more that we don't know about. And I think I almost think they need to be there to save Bran. And two, I think they're cool. I'd like to see more of them. I want to learn more of their story and see more of their interactions. So.
I think one other consideration that, as far as why I think they may not be back or back very little, is budget. Those prosthetics are expensive, and putting those actors in costume. Plus, they killed the main one. Anyway, I think you make some good points. I'm a little down. I'm a little more pessimistic about the chances, but it's one of those things. If I set my expectations low, I can only be happy. I can either be right or I can be happy and wrong. Because I am with you. I would love to see more of them. Okay, from Darren Tucker, Knight of the Forums. Do you think there is a chance that the Three-Eyed Raven is Bran? In Season 3, Jojen tells Bran, you can't kill the Three-Eyed Raven, And Bran asks, why not? Jojen says, because the Raven is you. And I don't know how far we can take that metaphor. Now, I explained in a few things about why this is kind of different, why what happened with Bran was kind of in the past, manipulating the past, was semi-unique because of the whole way that he was connected to the Weirwood network, and when he was pulled away, he didn't wake up like he did all the other times. So something was different about the state he was in, and it was because Three-Eyed Raven was trying to give him all this information at once, or because he was putting him in the spot where he knew he needed to be to make everything come full circle. Time travel stuff. We had we actually got a quote from in our Book to Show episode. Some theoretical physicists have weighed in on this, and it's not a paradox. It's just this is somewhat along the lines of what a lot of modern theoretical physicists think is true. It's like you can't erase things from the past.
You just create a new timeline.
Yeah.
So both things are true.
Yeah, more like I
definitely developed that thought. It was at least part of something I was reading at some point when I was young, mixed up with my own crazy thoughts and probably something I saw in a movie. But that there's sort of like, it's almost incomprehensibly infinite number of timelines that are going on.
Yeah,
always, and that anything that could be varied in any way is or was or will be or has been just on some different timeline.
Yeah,
and there's just infinite different timelines that account for all the possibilities of anything that could ever happen in history. And when you travel in time, what you're really doing, you're not going back on your timeline, you're going over to some other timeline where you went back or someone went back, or does that make sense? That you don't actually change this timeline, you just travel to a different one where time was changed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And the other one keeps going as if it wasn't, and then there's this different timeline where things go having been changed.
So you're saying there's a parallel universe where Joffrey is still alive, and just go from there. Just John, no.
On all the other parallel universes, Joffrey's still dead. He just got killed in different ways.
In progressively nastier ways. So the answer is it's definitely possible. I'm kind of down on the idea that it's the loop thing, for lack of a better word, is that big of a loop, that it's that tight that this character is in multiple timelines at once at the same time. That's a bit much for me. But hey, just because it's not my preference doesn't mean it can't be true.
It is interesting to think that at some point way in the future, Bran becomes an old man and knows that he has to get young himself into this scenario, and he knows he has to do it because he already did it, and he has to keep doing it again. I don't even want to saw Misfits. Anyone seen that TV show Misfits? Remember there was sort of a loop like that with one of those characters.
That's right.
And, there's another movie. But this is a good. Hey, can we take a tangent here?
Sure.
Because we're gonna talk about our favorite time.
Okay, actually, we'll move on from this question, and we'll come back to do just that.
Time travel movies. All right.
Okay. All right, Sean. So go ahead. What is your favorite time travel movie?
I'm hesitant to name favorite or even use the word favorite versus best or greatest or most worth watching, but I want to list some contenders because some of this is fun to think about, like what is a time travel movie, and some of them are like, oh, I guess that one, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was a time travel movie. Back to the Future. Kind of more recently, Edge of Tomorrow was a kind of a Groundhog Day-ish kind of one with Tom Cruise. Austin Powers.
Kind of is itself. Austin Powers. Right? Yeah, you're right. That's funny.
There was one, Run Lola Run, which I think that might be a debate. It was a German movie, and it wasn't really about time travel at all, but it's kind of this threefold story that reoccur. I don't know. Anyone who's seen it might know why I'm wanting to name that one. But I think the ones that were like probably the best known and would be best respected picks are Terminator. That's probably like one of the biggest main ones. Army of Darkness, by the way, time travel.
Yeah. Oh, great classic one. Yeah, there's two. I don't know how I'm going to pick a favorite out of these. I did say Primer. I thought, but that's just because I think Primer is the most like maybe realistic time travel movie. But it's not like a fun.
It's the one I was going to name next, and I think I put it number 2.
It's a mind melter. You just like, what? How did that work? It's just you think about it and it just.
The first time I saw it, I saw it with a friend who's like a film buff, and he saw it and came to me and said, Sean, I saw this movie, I'm kind of confused. I think it's really good, but I want you to watch it, but pay attention, it's confusing. So I went to watch it with that preface, with him watching it a second time, and we came out of the movie like, I'm really confused. I'm still confused. What did you think? Well, it was really good. Okay, and we got Rudy, our friend. We warned him. All right, we both saw this. We're both so confused. Watch it with us. Come out of the movie, Rudy. He's like, I don't know what was going on there. Like, if you see it, be ready to take notes and watch it a second time. It's really cool. But my favorite one is 12 Monkeys.
Okay,
I think that movie is Bruce Willis's best movie.
We talked about 12 Monkeys in the Book to Show episode. And I brought that up.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think it's Brad Pitt's best movie.
He is
with
really
the director too. He's known.
Terry Gilliam.
I think it's Terry Gilliam's best movie. I think it's a really good. It's easy when you hear like Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis. Think some kind of action blockbuster.
Yeah, you would. Yeah,
no,
nothing
really
like that
kind
at
of
all.
a dark, gritty drama.
Very dark.
Very intriguing.
There's a TV show for it now.
I do. I haven't seen it.
I don't know anything
scared.
about it.
I don't want it to spoil my perception of the movie.
It's basically set in the same world, but it doesn't really deal with the story from the movie. Apparently, that's just what I've heard, though. I don't know if that's true. Anyway, we should get back to Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones here.
Yeah, talking about that because the idea of the loop that might have been caused by Bran going back in time to get himself to become himself and doing it only because he knew he had to do it because he had gone through it. That I don't know if that's a paradox or loop or whatever you want to call it, but I think that's a neat idea. But it might be simpler than that. It might just be that the Raven is a position. And you are the person of that. I mean, kind of like the
could be,
especially like if the president is dying of cancer and they know he's got 14 hours to live or whatever, and well, the vice president, you're the president, sir. You know what I mean? Technically, no, we know what's going on. You're the president. And that might have been because Jojen, we know, can't see the future. So if he knew that Bran was going to be the Raven, telling him that he's the Raven doesn't mean that you are the same man is the Raven, but you are the same role, you're the same position.
That's kind of the interpretation in my favor.
Could be both.
But it could be both. Absolutely. Okay, let us move on to the next question here from Strawman. So we'll have to not answer the question you asked to properly handle a Strawman argument here. No, just kidding. Christian Nairn was quoted saying that Hodor was cognizant and in control of himself, holding the door in his last moments, aware of his sacrifice. I saw it this way initially. I do also see the validity of a more gray interpretation. What say all of you? I'll let you start first there.
I had said this already, that I wanted him to be deciding on his own to do it, but that it was unclear to me. And I felt like the default was Bran was controlling him, and most people I've talked to felt that same way. But when I made my arguments, people no one was ever like, no, definitely not for this reason. It seems gray, even if I didn't necessarily convince someone that it's different, they couldn't convince me that it wasn't that way.
He was absolutely had the flash of white in his eyes that shows Bran is taking him over in the current story and in the vision.
Definitely.
So, which kind of makes it seem that Bran has taken him over,
But how long does he take?
Yeah, he could let him
Bran
go.
Took him over 2 seasons ago. Has he been controlling him this whole time? At what
you're right.
point does it release? You know, maybe he controls him long enough to initiate an action, to convey a plan, and then leaves. You know,
or was forced out or something because it was all very. You know, he was in things were hectic and he wasn't awake. He didn't wake up. You know, so he's not fully conscious, etc. So
I think if Hodor was fully in control, that it makes Hodor more of a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And that if Bran was in control, then it makes Bran more of a tragic hero. Although maybe that's not quite the right for that. No, tragic hero is kind of very specific. Makes it more tragic. For the action he had to take as a hero. Much like Jon is more tragic of a character after having killed
Ollie.
Oh, I was going to say Janice Lynn. Ollie, yeah, sure. That's what Jolly, yeah.
But either way, I think we'll find that out because I doubt Bran's just not going to react. He's not going to just have a chance. I'm sure he's going to have a chance to lament what he's done.
Yeah.
You know, to his decision.
Maybe he's going to stay in a coma.
Wow, yeah. And he'll just have
and give us all kinds of visions of the past to show us all the answers.
He'll have to dream apologize.
Who wants Bran's character to be sacrificed to learn all the history of Westeros? Who is willing to have his character just be stuck in a coma from now on?
I am. He's not a real person. I'm not inflicting anything. Okay, next question. Okay, here's an opportunity for us to really speculate. This is just kind of fun here. Questions from 1998 champions, regular contributor. What do you think the closing credits will be for season 6? Dany landing in Westeros, Night's King and his army at the wall, or coming through the wall, or something else entirely? I do think that Dany, at least heading for Westeros, will be part of the end of the season. I really don't think the season's going to end with her not coming towards Westeros or not around. I don't think she'll get there, but I think she might leave for Westeros. Arriving there, I could see that, but I lean towards her leaving. But I also think that something epic, I'm not a big fan of the possibility that the wall will come down, but if they're going to breach the wall, the last episode of the season will be a great time to do that.
You know, it might be a better time to do that, though. The first episode of the next season.
Sure.
If they've already broken through the wall at the end of this season, it's hard to start off exciting next season. But it will be pretty exciting to have the zombie army assembled outside the wall.
To see, you're like, what's going to happen? Are they going to break the wall? Are they going to get through? You just kind of left
Jon looking over the edge, or Ramsay, or Davos, or Melisandre, whoever looking over the edge, seeing all these zombies approach, seeing the Night's King look up. You know, I think, and it fade to black. You know, like that. I think that would be an ending that will leave people pumped and excited, and it allows for the next season to begin with action. Right.
And I do think that this question is well phrased, that I definitely agree that it will be something to do with the Night King and Jon and the wall, or something to do with Daenerys.
Yeah.
I think those are the two main options. That I doubt it's going to be anyone else, but it could, of course it could be. But
connected to that, I think you get a good parallel is not quite the right word I want to use, but motif, I don't know. But if you have this army assembling outside the wall, and you have a navy assembling, you know, either whether it's Dany's navy heading out or showing up on the coast, or maybe even, I don't know how much they'll drag out Yara and Euron, because maybe it'll be their what?
Maybe you said you were going to call him Euron, and
maybe it'll be their navy showing up at Marine, right?
Yeah.
Maybe,
yes.
So especially that would be particularly epic if it was like as the slave cities are conquered.
Oh, you know what I mean? Yeah, it's like she brings the Khalasar down.
Here comes a fleet.
There's still 5 more episodes, and she's already got control of the Khalasar. So that's why I think it could go a little farther than that. But you know, they occasionally have her not in an episode at all. Actually, have they done that this year? I don't know if she. I think she might. No, I think she might not have been in one of the episodes. She's either been in 4 or all 5.
I think that she's been in every episode this season.
I think you're right.
But there have definitely been many episodes in seasons past where she wasn't.
Yeah, so they could leave her out of an episode in order to buy themselves some time to fit that all in. But yeah, that is an argument against it slightly because of where she's at now. She's already marching south, and yeah. Well, we'll see. Good, very good question there. Another question from Darren Tucker, Knight of the Red, one of the highest upvoted questions here. Prediction on major deaths this season. Will a Stark or Lannister die this season? Okay, in our book to show episodes, every week we do what's called a worry of the week and an armored in plot, which we say worry of the week is like this is someone we're worried about, someone we think might die soon. We also talk about who we think might die later, but it's mostly focused on the ones we think would die in the next episode or two. So this is sort of along those lines, especially if we're talking Starks, because that would be a worry. With a Lannister, well, it depends on which Lannister. I might be like, go ahead, kill them. Tyrion, do not kill him. Tommen, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of hope for Tommen. I don't want him to die, but I mean, are we really going to end this? Is Game of Thrones going to end with Tommen on the throne?
Probably not.
Probably not. It could.
And you can imagine that being part of like King's Landing falling apart.
Yeah.
And Cersei and Jaime just getting out of there. Like literally Jaime like scooping Cersei up and running her off.
One-handed.
As Tommen's just been killed and Red keeps going up in flames, you know.
With the prophecy of Tommen dying too, there's that. Like there's that. There's just a lot going against him. I mean, you got to think maybe he could be dethroned and still live somehow. But yeah.
Can we come back to this in 1 second? Because I want this is going to lead me into something else I want to talk about. But let's talk about other death predictions first.
Sure. Okay.
All right? First of all, I don't think that a Stark's going to die this season. I'll say that.
So Rickon's the one who's most in danger. So you'd say, like, if Rickon lives, then that means that Jon's obviously, he's already come back from death. Sansa dying, I agree with you. Arya dying, no way.
Let me be honest.
Season.
Let me be honest. Don't think so. I forgot about Rickon.
Okay.
Rickon might die.
Yeah.
But I think there's pretty much no way that Jon.
As far as Starks who've had a major role.
Yeah.
Rickon's not had a major role.
Let's see. Lannisters, I think Tommen might die.
I think I'd rank him
but I don't
likely.
think Jaime, Tyrion, and Cersei
Kevin.
are going to.
Kevin also
might die.
And Lancel. Yeah. Oof.
Lancel, yeah.
There's a lot of Lannisters that could die.
Lannister might die. A Lannister might die.
I feel like Jaime's not dying. Cersei's not dying, although she may die. I think she'll die eventually, but probably not this season. But yeah, Lancel, Tommen, Kevin. That's it. That's all the Lannisters, I think, besides Tyrion, who's also not dying, I don't think. So that's 3 out of 6. Yeah, 3 out of 6. I think that's 6 Lannisters that I think are very likely to get it this season in one way or another.
Let's see. You think Jorah's dying?
Jorah Mormont? Well, I know. I think he's safe for now. As long as he has grayscale, he's safe, which is a weird thing to say, but it's kind of like Jaime. When Jaime got his hand cut off, he became safe.
Yeah.
Because it began his redemption arc. And you don't kill a character during the redemption arc. You could. That would be quite a way to invert a trope, but you don't predict that. You don't predict that a character in the middle of redemption arc is going to die. So you just like Theon getting his penis cut off. He's safe for now. He's also safe from procreation. But yeah, so I think that's a big thing. Like this grayscale arc, something is happening here, and it has to play out. So he can't die before that.
There are lots of, I don't know how long, we could probably just spend the whole episode talking about
just this. Like every single character.
Brienne, Tormund, Podrick, So I guess maybe it's more worth sticking to the main characters. I've killed enough people this season already.
Is he High Sparrow going to die this season?
I don't think so.
Okay. I think he will, but I don't think it's going to be soon. I think it'll be towards the end of the season. What about Ramsay? I think I asked you that one already.
I don't think he's going to die.
Okay, I do think he's going to die this season. Who else do we have? Let's see. How about?
I buy your reason though. I do like the idea that Euron steps in for
Ramsay.
What
about Dario? Dario was something that I thought Dario was in big trouble going on this mission with Jorah, because Jorah I figured he was safe because of the grayscale. And
I was the other way around. I thought that Jorah would put himself into dangerous situations because he knew he was dying anyway, and Dario would come back to deliver the tragic news. I don't know if this is kind of a negative thing to say, but I don't care if Dario dies. I don't care.
Okay.
He's just not quite deep or intriguing enough for me, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm jealous because he gets to sleep with Dany.
What about what's someone like Varys?
Varys, I don't think he's going to die.
Yeah, I kind of don't.
He doesn't put himself in harm's way too much, you know?
What about like Missandei? Some people thought maybe Missandei was a little bit could be killed off because Varys and Tyrion have stepped in as advisors, and they're like older and more senior and more experienced, and they have connections to Westeros where she does not
realize someone might want to assassinate her or try to get close to Dany, and she might be in the way.
And it's kind of the same reason they killed off Barristan. It's like he didn't have as much to do anymore.
Yeah.
Missandei has plenty to do right now. She's the kind of the voice of reason, along with Grey Worm, though. There's someone else is doing it. So there's kind of two people.
No. She's the voice of emotion.
Yeah, no,
she's the voice of experience,
the voice of emotional reason.
Emotional reason, yeah. Voice of reason, not
she's a voice of reason. Yeah, you're right. Both of them are very reasonable, but they also obviously have a lot of emotion about this this last thing that they were involved in, which is being slaves. Of course, that
like they even pointed out, like on that they are judging us from a more personal perspective. Because Tyrion tried to say, "Hey, I mean, I was taking slave recently. I know what this is like." That was
the wrong argument.
And they're like, "No, you don't know." You know, but which on one hand they're correct to point that out. But Tyrion's also correct to point out, like, we shouldn't have people this close making a decision. You know what I mean? You don't. The football coach doesn't get to review the offsides penalty. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You get the neutral the referees who don't have a stake in the game. You know.
Okay, we should move on from that. We spent plenty of time on talking about who might die.
Well, I wanted that to lead into something else.
Oh, okay, go for it.
If Tommen dies, and I can't believe I haven't talked more about this.
Yeah,
and I feel like we probably did talk about it a little bit. Who takes over? What happens?
Well, that is a tough question. There is no obvious answer because there is no other Baratheon.
Right.
There's no Baratheon to inherit.
Like as I thought about it, I feel like it's like there's no Baratheon except first of all that's not true.
Well,
Gendry is out there.
Gendry's not a bastard. Is a bastard. He's not a Baratheon, but he could be legitimized. But they don't know he's out there.
Right. But say they did. Say he showed up. Who else has a more legitimate claim than him? Like maybe because his bastard doesn't have a legitimate claim, but who's the other person with a legitimate claim that's saying, "No, you don't. It's me." Like who is the other person that would even attempt to claim it?
It would be a cousin or something that we haven't heard of. But it doesn't matter. There is when you get to the point where there's an uncertain claim, there is no claim.
That's what I kind of realized is what would happen. I think is probably Cersei would just try to seize control. Maybe Kevin, maybe the two of them together, right? Someone who's pretty much, possession 9/10 of the law. Someone who's already there would make some move, at least temporarily, to be in charge. Yes. And then later on, they could have a kid or hire a person or sweet talk some other ally or whatever they would have to do or win a war or something. But I was just trying to think of aside from the technical theory, given that it would go to some sort of might makes right scenario, who would have the most might? Who would be the person? Like, if Cersei tried to claim it,
there isn't
Jaime
any
would
obvious,
back that.
There is
would
no
Kevin
obvious
back
answer.
That?
Kevin would back that probably because it's his family and it's what Tywin would want probably. But here's the thing: there's another possibility that's not a non-violent possibility. Now, this is something from that sort of comes from the books. It's not really from the books. It's mostly just from a history perspective, and we can assume the show kind of works similarly, which is that sometimes when there's no claimant, they have what's called a great council. There's been in the books. There's been 3 of them, I believe, in the history of since the conquest, and maybe there's just only 2. I think it's just 2 actually. It doesn't matter. In any case, it's come up a few times, and they make a decision because the things are stable enough that they're able to have a lot of people weigh in and kind of nominate. It's almost semi-democratic, of course. It's a very limited group of people that can be nominated, but that's how they handle it. But that can turn to violence if one side doesn't like the treatment they're getting. But it has resolved peacefully in the past, so perhaps that's what we faced with here.
Yeah, Marjorie's another potential. I mean, obviously, right now she's not in a good position to do it, but she is technically right now the queen. Yeah,
she could be, since she was married to the king. That's an argument. Yeah, and she would have to take, but she would still have to take a new husband, and then their kids would be the new.
But for example, heirs. Say it wasn't so extreme or obvious, right? What if Tommen was out hunting, went to check out the wall? What if he got wounded, and et cetera, et cetera? Marjorie, except that she's in jail right now, Marjorie would be in charge, right?
Not really.
Kevin would be in charge.
No, there would be no one. I mean, there is no one in charge.
Like when Robert Baratheon was wounded, Ned was in charge.
Yeah, because he's the hand. But remember, he was in charge because they had a powerful council. Ned was strong.
Right.
The current small council is not very strong because they can't even control, like, because Cersei and Jaime have, kind of one-upped them a few times. They've kind of manipulated them somewhat, and they don't work together. These things aren't set by these rules. The rules, all these people are above the rules. The rules are the rules, but all these people are above them. They do what they can get away with. They do what they can. They push their power comes first here. Maybe
Steven Seagal will be the king.
I hadn't considered that. Actually, now that you mention it, absolutely. That's who's next. It was Joffrey, Tommen, Steven Seagal. That's the proper laws of ascension. Okay, so let's move on. Let's talk about here. We have another question from Galby Celestin. Will we see the rest of the Tower of Joy? That was actually asked by several people, not just Galby, but the name here is Galby, so this is the person who gets the question answered. But it was a popular question to be answered. I think so. I have a few reasons that are slightly spoilery, so I won't say them, that I think it will happen. But they have to reveal, maybe it won't be the Tower of Joy, but we'll find out what happened. I don't think we have to know we have to be told one way or another about Jon's parentage. It's not going to be left hanging.
I guess, yeah.
I just really don't think it can be left hanging. I think it's really too important.
I do remember at one point talking to people, like earlier on when I was kind of getting into Game of Thrones and realizing and piecing together all the clues about who Jon's parents were, and talking to other people about it, whether getting their perspective or people who hadn't considered it, getting them to consider it, and having the thought that it's possible that it's true, and that we never really quite know. Like, think of how many other things in your life that like are ongoing or mysterious or secrets or whatever, that if you were to die, no one would ever know. There would just be a bit of knowledge in the universe. It just wasn't. And how many other things in this show, even secrets that were known, or vows that were made, or plans that were in production, that a person got killed and no one else knows, and it'll never be resolved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't. I don't know if it necessarily has to be resolved. I feel like it will. I feel like they put enough into it, but I don't think it's a given. Okay. I thought it was a given going into this season, and now I'm not so sure.
I'm going to do like we normally do here for our regular episodes and say we'll spend the last 10 minutes or so of this episode covering. There were a few questions that referenced trailers and next ons and things like that. So as usual, we don't want to spoil those things, but we will talk about them with fair warning. So we can come back to this Tower of Joy issue a little bit near the end. We'll come back to it because there are a few more things I want to say, but they're too spoilery for now. Okay. Question from Not Jeff Goldblum. Is it possible Mira picked up Dark Sister in the cave before leaving, or was that just Hodor's iron sword from the crypt? Dark Sister is a Valyrian steel blade that was used by Visenya, who was the elder sister wife of Aegon the Conqueror himself. Valyrian steel blade, obviously very, very powerful. The blade has been mentioned a few times in the show.
It has been mentioned?
Just kind of offhand.
Okay.
But I really don't think so. There's a reason to suspect Dark Sister might be in the cave in book canon, but I don't see, because the Three-Eyed Raven character has changed so much, apparently, from the book version. I don't think we can make that connection, and I don't think they made it a big enough deal. Just this random sword being picked up. I think they would have shown it, or if it is, it'll become clear because she'll use it or we'll see it, and it will clearly not be. It'll be a special looking sword. If it's just some regular looking sword, I really don't think so.
I sort of expect she'll have some special weapon. I remember there was a scene when at the entrance to the cave there were like a row of spears that I'm assuming had obsidian heads, and so she might have. I kind of hope and expect that she'll have some special weapon, but it still might kill one White Walker or a couple zombies, but not the whole horde. And I feel like the fact that when you mentioned that, I was like, "What? Who's Dark Sister? Oh, some sword from the book." I don't mean to blow, so I don't mean to be quite so negative, but I don't feel like I'm a fan of this show. Yeah. Like, I've got all kinds of notes, and I didn't know what you're talking about. So I feel like this is probably not something they're featuring.
Let me say how obscure
it's not meaningful enough.
Let me say just how obscure. We did an episode on it, on Dark Sister, a standalone episode on it. It was an hour long. We usually are able to do 2 hours. So that's how obscure it is. We couldn't even do more than an hour on it. But it's never mentioned in the books. It's only in the external canon, like the history book. Oh, really? And some of the prequel stories. Yeah. It's mentioned. It's never mentioned in the actual main 5 books, but it is mentioned on the show.
Really?
Yeah. So it's mentioned by, I believe it's mentioned by Arya when she's talking to Tywin in Harrenhal, because they talk about, like, do you know your history, and something like that. She mentions Queen Visenya had dark sister, something like that. I think that's when it was mentioned. So it's kind of funny that that we did an episode on it for book viewers, book readers, but it's never actually mentioned in the books, and it is mentioned in the show. But
so hear that, book readers, you're gonna get the show spoiled for you. Be careful. I want to be clear. I do think it's neat that these swords have histories and they have character and so on. The
Hound would not agree. Naming swords, he's not down with that.
I think that also I appreciate his perspective. I appreciate that mentality
you
too.
think it's kind of silly or whatever. Like, come on, naming your sword.
Yeah.
Come on.
I kind of feel like as a person, if I were a warrior, I wouldn't care about that. I wouldn't make fun of other people. I'd go along the tradition, but I would be more bottom line oriented. You know what I mean? But as a fan of this rich culture, you know what I mean? I want to know all about the swords. So yeah.
There's a funny moment. This is a super mild spoiler from the books. Jaime thinks about how he used to name his horses, and then he stopped because they just die all the time in battle. And he's like, I'll just stop naming them. By the way, I did the same thing I have fish tanks, and I stopped naming my fish for the same reason. They just die. I name a few of them, but most of them, I'm like, no, it makes me attached to them. And then when they die, it's sad, and fish just die too often. Anyway, that's a tangent. I need a White Walker to bring my fish back. Undead fish. Okay, another question. Speaking along the same lines here. Question from Ron Snow. Do you think it will be brought up that there is another Valyrian steel blade possibly at Jon's disposal, with Brienne being around with Oathkeeper? That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't think it will, because it seems like Brienne's heading south real soon to the Riverlands, and Jon's already kind of skedaddled from the area. So
it seems like a while before either of them will be facing White Walkers, but I'm pretty sure they're going to end up facing White Walkers.
Yeah.
And it might be pretty convenient and awesome to have Brienne there smashing down some White Walkers with her Valyrian steel blade. Right?
It's a double whammy. Yes, she would be super useful because her sword is among the few that would be particularly effective, and because it would mean Brienne lasts that long.
Yeah.
It means she's around for that end, which we definitely want to see.
She might die doing it. It's scene, right?
It's hard for people to escape from that. Okay, let's keep moving. We're definitely not going to get to every question, so apologize in advance for that. That's just always the way it goes. We'll keep focusing up on these ones that have the highest upvotes. Another one from Darren Tucker, Knight of the Red. Good job, Darren, getting a couple questions with a lot of upvotes. If Marjorie ends up with a trial by combat, can she, as queen, demand that the Mountain, as a Kingsguard, be her champion? I don't see why not.
Yeah, I've asked similar questions before. I don't know if that's who she would choose, or if she would even know to choose him. I think it would be
smart to choose him. Yeah. I mean, he can't be killed. He's already dead. How can he lose? No, I do think that's an interesting possibility. It's really gonna. I'm not sure it will come up though, because I'm still holding on to some sort of trick is going to happen here with the High Sparrow in this march, but.
Can I want to take this moment to talk about something, because I've had some further thoughts on how King's Landing is going to play out.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you what I kind of predict. They're going to assemble the forces. The Lannisters and Tyrells are like, let's go kick their ass. They better let Marjorie go. They better let Loras go. They better not embarrass her in the streets like they did to Cersei. We're going to just go in there and kill them all. And High Sparrow's going to be like, oh, it's cool. Here's Marjorie. Take her. I didn't know you guys were going to get upset by this. You're getting all the people worked up. Come on, man. You don't have to be so militant. You know what I mean? Like, he just be cool and give her up and not worry about how she goes down the street naked or any of that. You know? Kind of just diffuse it by just like giving them what they want. But and Loras too. And we're like, Loras, of course. Loras, come on out. And he's going to come out in brown robes, a little pentagram on his forehead, and stand there next to Lancel and be like, I'm just going to stay here. That's what I think. That's what I think.
What would be really neat, too, is if Loras fights the Mountain, it's a rematch of season 1 in the Joust.
Yes, that's right. We talked about that.
Yeah, we did touch on that briefly, so that's good. It bears repeating that. So that there's a thematic resonance to that happening again. And, well, I don't like Loras' chances. Let's just say that. Here's a great question. They're by Wilkins75. If Brienne meets Jaime in the Riverlands, could she expose that Littlefinger is working against the Lannisters by telling him he had Sansa? Yes, absolutely. I think they might find that out anyway. I think the fact that Sansa's out and about in the north is just going to get out one way or another. It may not come out that Littlefinger had to do with that, anything to do with that, but it probably will, because of, how it's just, the Vale is showing up to like defend her and
they might be beyond worrying about it. I don't know for sure, but they might at this point. Well, she married a Bolton. The Boltons are our allies, right? Boltons are allies. Okay. All right, whatever. We got other stuff to deal with. They might not.
Roose pointed out that he, betrayed the Iron Throne by doing this stuff with Sansa, and so he figures that. Okay, he said that he was like, it was only a matter of time before they turn on us.
Although, let's just say that it's revealed, and they care and they're upset. You know what else has been revealed? Iron Islands are in revolt. Is anyone care? Is anyone upset? Are they doing anything about that?
Well, they're not doing anything. As Yara said, like they ignore us, they smack us down, and they're not actually attacking.
But neither is Roose, neither is Littlefinger. They're not doing anything.
They did. Okay, well, Baelon is the one who started this all, and so they've been this whole time. They took the north, and King's Landing ignored them because they were attacking their enemies. So I think they have too many problems to worry about the Iron Islands. But this is more important, because this is Sansa. And this is them losing something.
You just don't respect Iron Islands either, do you?
No. Even though I'm drinking from an Iron Islands mug. No, I do. I think that so I think that's the thing. It's part of it's just being realistic. They can't deal with the Iron Islands, and they don't need to, because they're not currently a problem.
Yeah.
Now the Boltons
are they currently
losing the north? Well, they are if this is indication of greater treason, if this means that they're going to try to become independent or something like that, then that's them losing a real piece of the realm. Losing the Iron Islands as part of the realm, they can take care of that eventually. And they're not losing a lot of like income in the meantime or whatever. But the north is huge. It's such a big part of the kingdom.
It's still so easy for Bolton or Littlefinger to spin it as this is how you secure the north. You marry a Stark back in. You know what I mean? Like,
but still, that was
play to strengthen the north.
She was She was basically property of King's Landing. There, she was property of Cersei. Cersei's not just going to forget that, right?
Same thing. Littlefinger just did the same thing when he saw Royce. He would say like, "I was attacked by troops on the way, and he knew right where we were. How did they know about there?" Littlefinger say like, "I found her."
I definitely shouldn't underestimate Littlefinger's ability to work to squirm his way out of something.
And he might even, however he spins it. Cersei or whoever might know good and well that he's lying, but they can't do anything because Littlefinger's got the Knights of the Vale now, or he's got some information about the Sparrow, whatever it is. They just can't chop his head off. Maybe they will. Maybe he'll get his head chopped off. But I feel like he's got things plotted out. He's made it this far. He knew that this potential was there. He didn't think that it would just be secret forever that Sansa. You know what I mean? Like
okay. So I guess the takeaway from that is, it's a great question to ask. Something I hadn't thought about was the meeting of Jaime and Brienne and what Brienne and Jaime can tell each other. And this is certainly one of the big things. So that's great to think about. Good job, Wilkins75. Okay, quick break again. And we'll come back with our last half hour of the night and a lot more great questions. Okay, here's a question from our friend Nina Friel. What do you suppose might be the great dramatic event of episode 9? Episode 9s have always been the big, hard-hitting, big battle, big moments for the most part.
It's spread out a little bit to episodes 8 and 10, though.
It does, yes, you're right. But episode 9's
the first few seasons for sure was definitely
the history of episode 9's is, I believe it was the top, not including this season, the top 10 rated on IMDb Game of Thrones episodes. 5 of them are the episode 9's.
Yeah.
So so they really have packed the most punch as far as popularity and major events, because usually those things go together. Major events and popularity tend to, merge in that sense. So I think the question is, great dramatic event of episode 9, Battle at Winterfell, some version of the Battle of Fire. Will we see a similarity to last season where episode 8 had a great battle and 9 had the fighting pit? I think the latter. Yes, I think it'll be more similar to, like you said, it's spreading out a bit more. It isn't quite as focused on episode 9, partly because the budget's bigger. They can do a big battle and still do some big things in the other ones. And
because more stories are being woven together, so you're going to have more climactic moments.
Yeah. So. I'm definitely betting on the Battle of Winterfell being episode 9. But I don't mean that I know that for some reason. That's just a pure guess based on the patterns of past seasons, when they happen, when they tend to have the big battles, and all that. So the aftermath, I assume some of that will be resolved by the end of the battle, and some of it in episode 10. And
I think it'll be episode 8.
I think so?
I
Okay.
think Winterfell will be 8, and the Wall will be 10.
Ooh,
Like I think between 8 and 10.
What's 9 then? Something with Dany then?
Yeah, they'll do action in other places.
Something at Slaver's Bay, maybe bringing the Khalasar down. Okay, I kind of
maybe King's Landing being burned and the Lannisters fleeing.
I can see that.
We get no King's Landing, no Lannisters in episode 10, and it's a bit focused on a big battle, maybe a sea battle with Dany or something like that.
Yeah.
Episode 8 and or 9 could also have a battle with Dany taking back, the slave cities who aren't complying with Tyrion's treaty or whatever.
Yeah,
you can have a battle with the Dothraki.
That's a good point, because you want to align things up with what we talked about before. If Dany's going to be like heading out for Westeros, that would be episode 10.
Yeah,
if she's arriving by episode 10 for the end of episode 10, then I suppose that we need to flip flop that and say Battle of Winterfell would be 9, and she's probably doing her attacking business before leaving around episode 8.
Maybe. I don't know.
So then she can pack up and start leaving by episode 10.
I think you might get a battle of Winterfell and a battle in Marine area, Essos, in episodes 8. And then you get a battle. I don't know. There's lots of different big things to happen. I feel like there's like 5 things that would be worthy of an episode 9. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so you can get 2 of them in episode 9, 2 in episode 8, and 1 in episode 10. I think you have enough to fill up episodes 8, 9, and 10 with big moments. And exactly what order they'll be, I'm not sure, but I'm inclined to think that the Winterfell will be sooner, because you need time to have another one happen after. And I kind of feel that way about having a battle with Dany too, partly because I think it's actually a little bit less meaningful. That'll probably be 9, actually. I bet that's 9. They get battles in Marine with Dany in 9, and images of her sailing out in episode 10. You get Battle of Winterfell in episode 8, time to prepare for the Wall in 9, battle at the Wall in 10.
Okay.
Something like that.
Something like that. Right on. Okay, let's move on. From Wilkins75 again. Could anyone take on the Dead Mountain and win? Who would you pick to take him on? Who can beat him? I can't think of anybody.
I think just an person.
Yeah, an person. Like if in a trial by combat situation or just any sort of one-on-one fight. Yeah, I can't think of anyone that's capable of beating him.
I don't want to pick him because
I'm just like burning him, like just.
The person I want to pick, I'm afraid to pick, is I won't want him to lose. But I think the best pick is Bronn.
Bronn, not bad.
Yeah.
Speaking of, when do we get to see Bronn this year?
I know, that's what I'm saying.
When do we get some Bronn action? Hopefully soon. Go somewhere. Jamie needs to go somewhere so he can take Bronn with him, and we can get more Cooper and Darnell banter. Looking forward to that.
I want to make a couple points real quick.
Sure.
The other thoughts that I've had. One is thinking about visions and Bran and stuff we want to know about the past.
Sure.
I should have brought this up early because this topic's come up a couple times.
That's okay. It's the nature of Q&A is to jump all over the place.
The moment when Kinvara, like is talking to Varys, and like to me, like setting up this like super suspense cliffhanger. I can't think of the word, but like, what was the voice? What did they say? What did he hear? I want to know this. I wonder if a way that could be revealed, especially depending on everything kind of ties together and how the gods are involved and the different players. Yeah. With the vision for Bran. If Bran could be a witness to what happened to Varys in his youth and how and why it happened. We
don't need to see another penis removal.
Mutilation. Yeah. Anyway, that's one thought that I had.
That's interesting.
It might just be Varys might just tell the story. And maybe it'd be neat to see one of Melisandre's visions or one of Kinvara's visions for us to be shown that.
We haven't really gotten to see it that way.
But, and here's the other thing. This is another thing that I think was really neat about this episode, something that happened.
Okay.
Think of all the different characters and all the different, their temperaments and their expertise, their attitudes. Who would you say are the two most, I'm going to say like prepared or stable or organized or savvy characters? Who would you say?
Most organized? Most savvy?
Yeah, a swirl of those different things. For example, it's not Arya.
No.
It's not Sansa. Probably, it's not Ned Stark.
It could be Littlefinger.
There's one.
And it could be Varys.
2. Yeah. That's exactly the 2
and
people.
Those are the 2 most intelligent schemers. Yeah.
Those 2 people were both at their weakest moments in this past episode.
Huh.
Both of them were both in
very good.
uncertain footing.
I didn't see anyone make that observation. That's really clever. Yeah, good.
I thought that was a neat thing to witness. These people who always know exactly what to do, what to say, and where they're going, the next step. And they got everything plotted out, and both of them were suddenly confronted. Interesting, with a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Taking them out of sorts, making them reevaluate what they're doing, and not sure what to say back. You know,
one woman very young, one extremely old. Yeah. Well, probably. Okay, here's a few more. I believe we pretty much answered this already, but I want to throw it up there just to reiterate. How many others are left right now? Didn't Craster give away many, many sons? Yeah, he did give away more sons. We've, of course, been giving away sons for years.
Yeah.
So
that's something I wondered about too.
Yeah,
is it 7 or 37? How many could it
be? Is he partly responsible for helping them return in a way? Like, did he give them power that they may not have?
I feel like when we talked about this, we kind of decided, or at least I kind of decided in thinking about it, it couldn't have made that much difference. If they have armies of thousands, and maybe if the 13 we saw, all 13 of them came from Craster, then well, maybe that was a big deal. But
it's really hard to say. Yeah, we're not clear on their numbers. If there was only those 13, then I would say that's the Craster has definitely played a big role.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to believe that Craster would be like the only guy in the North giving them sons. You know, it could be. It wouldn't be a big surprise, but it would kind of make sense. He might be the only
one giving them. They might steal them or randomly get them. Otherwise, but I don't know how much of this other people would have been in the business of doing it. You know, like generally speaking, you wouldn't see anyone giving up sons, right? Like that's not. I don't know how different wildling culture is, but that would seem quite unusual, right? In pretty much any culture, and even in fantasy, feudal, modern times, even they're trying to make laws in China or whatever. It's you don't, for better or worse, unfair or not, it's not part of culture to give up your son. So I would not expect other wildlings to be doing. Maybe someone somewhere, but not with the sort of organized regularity that he seemed to be doing it with. You know.
Well, thanks for the question there, from Kazra Karimi, and we move on to a question from Shankar Padmanabhan. Hopefully I said that reasonably well. Since Bran and the Night's King may have similar powers, do you think Bran will be able to control his white army and turn his forces against the Night's King? We discussed that part already, but the second part of the question, do you think Night's King might be able to recruit Bran to his side? I don't think he'll be able to. I think he might try, but we haven't seen anything that would hint towards that.
Depends on what you mean by recruit.
You know, like kill him and use his body for another walker? Well, he won't. It's not going to do any walking. Won't work.
That's interesting.
He's a white crawler. But yeah, no, I kind of doubt it, but it's a cool thought to think about. Maybe he's like try to control him, and maybe now that the three-eyed raven's out of the way, he's, you know, he doesn't have this protection. But I kind of doubt it. But it's a fun thing to think about. Here's another one. What do you think that is from Alejandro Gaidu? I'm not sure how to say your name. Apologize. What do you think that is more disturbing? Bran mind-fucking Hodor accidentally, or Mira consciously asking Hodor to sacrifice himself as she's the one yelling, hold the door?
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah, Mira, I mean, it's hard to judge people when things are super desperate, and you can't necessarily blame her for prioritizing Bran's life over Hodor. It's not like these are two. In our world, prioritizing one human life over another is pretty rough. You can't. It's not necessarily do that. But this is not. This is literally the person that is necessary to perhaps save all of mankind.
Yeah, so she's been on this quest to find and protect and help him this whole time.
Yeah. And also, it couldn't go any other way.
So was Hodor.
Yeah, that was Hodor. That's true. But how could it have gone anyway? No one else could have.
He wasn't
held the door.
Quest, but right.
It's just a matter of
supposed to say that. Hodor, just let him through. Don't worry. Hodor, just let him through. Don't worry.
Yeah, you know, like, he was dead basically the moment they invaded the cave, because you know, and the door was their only way out. Yeah. That's that. I mean, it's just no other way it can go. It's either they all die or maybe some of them get away. Hodor can't save them, but I mean, only Hodor could save them there. So that's a good question, though. All right, so let's move on.
I'm sure she will feel some guilt, just like Bran will. You know what I mean? And maybe I've seen some hate directed toward Bran's character. It's his fault that Hodor got killed. Why isn't it Mira's fault? You know.
Here is a good question from Karen Chavez. Do you believe that Sansa could have not said about meeting Peter, Baelish, Littlefinger that is, because she doesn't trust Davos or Melisandre, not because of a thing about Jon?
Well, that is possible, but she didn't. She was asked why, and she didn't give that as a reason. Bran said, well, "Why'd you lie to your brother?" She said, "I wasn't lying to him. I was lying to Dada." She just like, "I shouldn't have done that. Oh my!" she didn't give that explanation.
Yeah, she just kind of didn't say anything. Really.
Which right? She didn't have a good answer. Like the answer is because I don't trust my brother. That that's the answer, right? And she didn't want to say that out loud. She didn't want to admit to it. But
it's true that she doesn't know Jon. Like it was a wonderful reunion, but she really doesn't know him very well. Of course, everything she's seen about him should indicate that he's trustworthy, but you can't blame her for having these trust issues from being so much in your time with Littlefinger.
For one, I think you got to be careful how you use the word trust. I pointed this out before one time. And trust doesn't necessarily mean they won't steal my money. It means I know how they will behave. Right. And so
like Tyrion trusting the slavers to act in their own best interests. That's not trust.
Right. He doesn't think they're good men, but he knows how they will behave. And he can make plans based on that. Right. Yeah. Sansa doesn't necessarily know how Jon will behave. In fact, she probably does know how he'll behave, and it's not the way she wants. If she says, oh yeah, I talked to Littlefinger. He has this army and wants to help out, but I don't want him to. Like, what do you mean you don't want him to? He was mean to me. It's his fault I got raped. I don't want his help. Like, you don't understand. We need his help, Sansa. Like, you can't make this personal decision for yourself. We need his help as an army, as a force. We're going to go get his.
Your goal is to, you say yourself, your goal is to take back Winterfell. Well, we need soldiers for that. That's the reality.
And she just might get outpowered by all the men telling her what to do. Also,
so she's concealing that.
Also, kind of knowing it's true and just hoping that she doesn't have to go there.
Maybe she hasn't admitted it to herself yet, but I kind of feel like she'll come around.
Maybe knowing she can ask for help later, that he's not going to not give it later, et cetera, et cetera. But you can see all the reasons why she wouldn't want to say it there, even if she does trust Jon. Does that make sense? Just because she trusts him doesn't mean she will agree with her plans or understand her emotions. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, here's another. Well, no, I'm going to save that for the spoilery questions, actually. Here's a question from Imaginista Requiem. Do you think Littlefinger could have written the pink letter? He uses the phrase "come and see" when showing Robin the Falcon and the conversation he had with Cersei last time he saw her. So he says apparently that phrase is attributed to him, and the letter, could be he's trying to stir things up to create this war so he can come in and rescue and be, because that's what he's been trying to set up for a while, is to bring the Vale Knights to the north to make a power play. And, well, he can't do that if the north isn't in conflict with itself. The problem I have with this idea, I think it fits, except for one thing, which is that if someone else wrote the pink letter, that's just a book term for it.
Yeah, I was going to say real quick, what's a pink letter?
Yeah, pink letter is the letter.
I'm kind of aware because I've heard people talk. My last name is Pink.
Yeah.
And so the idea of a pink letter or my name and being in Game of Thrones and it's every now and then in the mail, get a letter that is pink, it is, and people just said, and so I've kind of garnered that there must be a pink letter or some pink letters in Game of Thrones, but I don't really know what they are.
It's the same thing. It's the letter that was sent saying, give me back Sansa, or I rape her, blah, 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 or I'm going to do all
Was it like on a pink parchment or something?
No, the Bolton colors. One of the Bolton colors is pink.
Okay.
And so they use pink sealing wax for the letter. So in the show, it was more of a dark red.
Yeah, I thought it was red, but maybe if I thought it was supposed to be pink, I would have seen it as pink.
But in any case, the point is that the letter, it's the same letter, basically. The wording is slightly different, but it's not a huge difference. And just like, and there's also, I'll say, and this is a slight book spoiler, but it parallels this exactly. There is questions as to whether or not Ramsay actually wrote it or not.
Okay.
But the problem, this part has nothing to do with the books, what I'm about to say. In the show, if Ramsay didn't write it, that means he's doing nothing to get back Sansa and do the. He hasn't even sent a messenger, because that messenger was wearing Bolton color. Like that letter was hand delivered by a man with a Bolton shield.
Now that could also have been set up by Littlefinger.
Absolutely, but that does mean that Ramsay's just sitting there doing nothing, just expecting things to fall in line. It means he's not trying to get back Sansa, or they're not showing.
Which doesn't seem like the case. It seems like he's plotting things out. He's gathering allies and so on and so on.
So I like the idea. I think it's cool, and I think it's fun to think about these other possibilities. But ultimately, that lack of action on Ramsay wouldn't make sense to me.
I want to point out something while we're on Ramsay here real quick. This is another thing that someone else actually pointed this out to me, but it made me, I didn't have a particular problem with Ramsay killing Roose. I think it could have been done better, and I don't like that he did it. Like, I really wanted and thought it was Roose killing Ramsay. It's not the direction I thought it was going. I was disappointed that it happened. But a lot of people thought it wasn't realistic. I've heard a lot of people complain that like Roose should have been ready for that, And I guess I see what they're saying. In my mind, though, I feel like the child wasn't even born yet. He's like having dinner with his son. He seems like he's establishing, like, it's not like he should be totally trusting, but it's not like he should have been expecting to get stabbed with a knife at that moment. You know what I mean? I think somewhere in the middle, I don't think it's like, Roose was just an idiot. Like, I don't know if you have to be an idiot to not expect to get stabbed in a knife at every moment by your own son. You know what I mean? All that said, though, anyone who had trouble with that, or whichever trouble I might have had, was lessened a little bit when someone pointed something out to me. Ramsay hugged Roose, which is probably not normal for either of them to have an emotional moment like that. And it's a way for Ramsay to check if he's wearing armor.
Nice,
right?
That's clever.
I don't know if they thought about that when they wrote it, but if you think about it,
he's not wearing.
Yeah,
and he was concealing armor at the Red Wedding, where he had.
Exactly.
That was the thing that Catelyn notices the armor.
Yeah, that was like the tip off. That's the thing that the person I was talking to, got them to make that connection about how he was wearing armor.
He probably could tell by how bulky he was or not, but I like the explanation anyway. That's cool. It's just a double check.
It also shows that Ramsay would have expected Roose to be prepared.
It's like maybe
it really was a surprising moment. Maybe Ramsay was planning to do it all along, and Karstark knew it, and he's like, if that fat stepmom of mine gives birth to a boy, I'm gonna have to kill my father. And like, I would too. I know what you're saying. I'll be behind you if you do. And then that shit, it happened. Oh, it's a boy now? Let me see if he's got armor on. I don't know when my next best chance is coming.
And this
doing it now.
This all relates to some stuff we talk about with Sansa and trust issues. It's not good when you have trust issues. It's harder for you to trust people because it's not necessarily that you're dishonest, that you become dishonest because other people are dishonest to you. It's that this whole concept of trust is harder to work with. And so for Ramsay to be thinking, my father's a cunning man, and Ramsay's a schemer. So people who are schemers are more likely to expect other people are schemers. Yeah, it's like dishonest people expect dishonesty, and honest people expect honesty. It's kind of the same thing. Okay, so let's move on. Let's do one more question, and then we'll move on to the spoilery questions. And let's go with this one from another one. Darren Tucker's just crushing it tonight. Darren Tucker, Knight of the Red, Knight of the Forums. As far as we know, the Boltons hold Moat Cailin. How do you see Littlefinger getting the Vale Army through? Fake alliance or real alliance? Yeah, that is definitely a strategic or logistical issue that is worth paying. You cannot just march an army through Moat Cailin from the south. That's why Roose and Ramsay did that whole thing where they brought Theon there to free it. So absolutely, he can't. Someone's going to have to let him in, to let that army in, and it might be that some of the North joins. It could go a couple of ways, like Darren's suggesting. Littlefinger could say he's coming to be an ally of Bolton. He's like, well, we're still allies. I'm bringing you help.
Where did he say?
Let him through.
Where did he say he had the Knights of the Vale?
At the Moat Cailin. That's exactly.
Not controlling it, just there.
At Moat Cailin. That doesn't mean anything. We don't know.
Okay.
But presumably they haven't taken it because it's supposed to be impossible to do that.
Yeah. And for sure, I guess we know the Boltons have it because they took it when deploy with
right. We've seen them take it, and there's no reason to think that they've lost it.
Yeah.
And they know how important it is. It would be silly for them to give it up. So it would have to be. I do think it has to be trickery. So Littlefinger's going to have to pretend he's still an ally of the Boltons, which he's done.
Yeah.
At all this point. So
he's definitely playing all the sides as far as we can tell at this moment. So
yeah. So that is, I think that's likely in it. But as the possibility of a real alliance, yeah, I guess there's a chance. I don't think so though, because I think he still wants to pull, to rule with Sansa and to take over kind of himself, or I don't think he wants to co-rule with Ramsay or do anything with Ramsay really. But he's a guy who rolls with the punches. If that's the best
Ramsay
path
also
to power,
creates chaos. Maybe he likes having Ramsay around.
That's a good point. Yeah. So
maybe he wants enough chaos to be Lord of the North, but no more chaos after that.
Okay, folks. So if you don't want to hear us discuss questions and answers based on trailer spoilers, interviews, and the next on episode 6 especially, but also we're going to talk about things that may or may not happen in episode 7, 8, 9, and 10. So if you don't want to be spoiled on those, we'll see you next time. We'll see you on Monday. Thanks for tuning in. Nice turnout tonight. Wasn't sure how many people would want to grind another several hours of awesome discussion. Glad to see there's so many of you out there that are just as into the material as we are. That it just warms my heart. So I think this is a really good question here from Helene May. As an addendum to the question I asked about Bran with the mark of the Night's King on Monday, yeah, several people asked that question, so good job you asked it as well. Do you think it's possible that Benjen could have survived as long as he has if he somehow had the mark of the Night's King upon him too? Could it explain why he hasn't come back? That's a great question. And, we were both kind of down on the possibility that mark, we certainly didn't say no, it couldn't be, but we were both leaning towards no on that. But this does make me reconsider that a little bit. It would explain a few things. It would explain why he couldn't come back, but it wouldn't explain why he couldn't just like come near the wall and be like, hey guys, I can't come over. I can't cross because
I got this mark.
This mark on me. I feel like there'd be a simpler way to resolve that.
Also, how would he know what the effects of it were? You know what I mean? Maybe it could be magically conveyed to him, which means other things could be, I don't know. Maybe he's just been communicated to by the Raven. You know what I mean? Like, hey, stick around. You're going to need to save Bran. You know, like.
And especially because if he saw the past, he would have seen this need for an escape and this need for help. Now, from the trailer, we see someone riding a horse, wielding a fiery ball and chain, smacking a white in what appears to be a white. Well, it's definitely a white. Well, almost definitely a white in the face. And with a freeze frame, you can see that happens with Mira and Bran on the screen. They're right there in the corner. So it's a close call. So it does seem like it'll be a last minute rescue. I'm just wondering, we talked about why he doesn't have his horse. Like, where does something is some sort of weird explanation is gonna. I just can't figure it. But I'm excited because the possibility of Benjen returning seems pretty cool. We've been wondering about that for a long time. So yeah, it could explain a lot. It would explain a lot, but it wouldn't explain everything. There'd still be a lot of other unanswered questions. It would answer some questions, but it would create new ones. I guess that's the answer. Okay, let's look at a few others. Let's see here. What are some other good questions? Here's an interesting one. I've heard that some think Sansa is pregnant. Do you think that her visit from Littlefinger when she said she could still feel what Ramsay had done to her in her body might be what she is talking about? Sophie Turner also mentions a red wedding to come. I think the red wedding to come, well, I have some thoughts on that, but they're book spoilers, so I just won't go there.
I'm glad this came up because I meant to talk about this earlier. I had thought about this in the past too. I felt like I almost feel like they wanted to make sure we knew she was pregnant by making sure that we saw Ramsay consummate the marriage. And also Ramsay made sure there was a witness, making sure, on one hand, it was like this cruel thing, this weird, torturous thing that he was doing. But on the other hand, it might have had a practical purpose. There was a witness to know for sure that Sansa's carrying his child. She even said in a part of the speech to Ramsay, he needed my stark face for his heir. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I still feel inside me what he did to me. And so I feel like they could have said it more clearly, but they could have said it less clearly too. They definitely used those words and those statements for her to talk about the scenario. And the way they showed it happen and made a point of how Tyrion didn't consummate the marriage and so on. It's even part of the tradition, right? For the men to carry the woman off and see to it that it's done. Is that tear her clothes off and throw them into bed? And Ramsay didn't have all that. Well, damn it. I need Theon to watch then. I need the world to know that I got her pregnant. And I steered away from the thought in the past.
Is it really necessary? I mean, everybody knows that there was a ton of witnesses to the marriage. Why would there ever be doubt that he would be the father of any children she has?
I don't know. Don't forget he also gets to be weird and torturous, but the only thing that steered me away from being more sure of it was I don't see how there's enough time on a show for a pregnancy to play out.
I agree with that.
Does that make sense?
Yes, especially how slowly Gilly's baby has grown up.
Yeah. Doesn't mean she can't be pregnant, and it wouldn't change how things play out. But it was reinforced in me when someone pointed out to me the language of her speech. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. That was a thing I had considered and was starting to blow off, but I feel like they're bringing it back to the forefront.
Now, here's a related question from Dornish Dan that directly ties into this. Sansa the Shrewd. Sansa can send a gray letter, the Stark colors, to let Ramsay telling him she's pregnant. True or not?
Yeah.
She can turn the tables on him a little bit and say, hey, look, this kid is in danger unless you let Rickon go or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what Dornish Dan suggests. Like, that's interesting. Very interesting. I don't know how Ramsay would play that. I don't know if she'll think of that possibility because I'm kind of down on the possibility of her being pregnant for what you said. You know,
yeah,
the fact that there's just no time for this to play out. It would be like a creepy, bittersweet part of a bittersweet ending if you know, things kind of come out okay. They beat the White Walkers, Winterfell is restored, but Sansa bears Ramsay's child, and it's like, man,
it wasn't part of George's original intent for her to marry Joffrey and have a child with Joffrey and be torn between the son that she loves but being part of this family that she hates.
Absolutely. So that gives it a little extra credibility. But the fact that nothing has come up to suggest it's all just an idea that we haven't seen any confirmation of. Now, Sansa didn't want to tell the truth about Littlefinger and the Vale Knights. Maybe this is something else she would want to conceal, but it's a silly thing to conceal because it's going to come up, you know. We should know pretty soon one way or another. Like, they can't just conceal it forever. It wouldn't be believable. She's gonna have to have like morning sickness or something. Not every woman gets morning sickness, but you know, she has to like start showing or something. You know, it's too much time will have passed. Anyway, okay, that is the last question we have time for. We wanted to keep this at 2 hours because there's always time for more questions later. And hey, I got to go to Balticon tomorrow. I gotta edit this video, get it up, and prepare to answer more questions at Balticon. And then we come back and watch the episode on Sunday. We'll be back on Monday with another review and lots more fun. Only halfway through the season. It feels like we've done so much already. So I'm really looking forward to the second half. I'm sure you are too. One question on this one question I didn't get to that I saw out of the corner of my eye was, have I ever touched your beard before? And well, yes, now I have. Okay. Valar Morbeardus, Valar Morghulis. We'll see you all on Monday and maybe see a few of you at Balticon. Come say hi. You know what I look like, so just see me. Come say, hey, Aziz, I know you. All right, everybody. Adios and have a great weekend.